This broadcast is brought to you by Logitech G, OG Original Gaming Gear, Speed Cafe, and the Australian Sim Racing Group.
Hey, you know that guy who...
Baba, what are we playing?
Ya lo sabéis, it's Halo Day.
Yeah, one sec.
He's playing football, isn't he?
这家伙, you know he fancies himself footballer. Oh, whatever. Look, your love makes me strong, but your hate makes me invincible. All right, let's get on Halo then. Let's go.
Ready.
Dale.
You got my back this time, right? You also
Chill, chaval. I won't ghost you this time.
I'm going hallway.
I got right.
Uno fuera.
Up, another one down. Lock in. Next kill wins it.
Where is he? No lo veo.
Nisha, you hear that?
Quick on him, top left.
there. I'll push it. He's one shot.
Game over.
Got him.
Well played.
Same time tomorrow then.
We'll see.
Bye-bye.
Ciao. Nos vemos.
It's another round, another tale, another story that's going to be told here tonight. And it's on one of the shortest tracks of the season, Watkins Glen and the Watkins Glen Cup layout. We're not going to be using the boot section. It's the bullring round of the season, as it's colloquially known amongst the drivers. It is going to be tight. It is going to be technical. There are going to be curbs that you need to crawl all over to get speed out of the car. And yet another round that's going to put another sting in the tail of this championship. 5 rounds out of 12 at the conclusion of tonight. Will we see a change of the championship lead? Will we see somebody try and take victory from obscurity? I enjoyed that line so much when I was writing it this week, Dan. But what are your thoughts on tonight's race?
Well, filling in here, unfortunately, you won't get to hear Stephen Sandman Clark as you usually do, ladies and gentlemen. But good to be back, having done this a couple of times with you, Scott, last year. And qualifying series earlier this year as well, with a couple of other people in the booth. But, I mean, yeah, as you said, this is going to be our fastest race of the season in terms of average speed and the expected duration of this race. Because we are still looking at the same usual distance, but just the sheer lack of time it takes to get around this place in this configuration of the circuit. And it means it's going to be all about staying in the pack, I would say, more than anything else here this week.
Well, talking about draft train, it's absolutely critical to stay in that draft train, and if you lose it, that is going to cost you a significant amount of lap time. Where are we going? We're going to the northern part of the American continent, and we're going all the way up in between New York and Toronto. Watkins Glen's been a cultural home of NASCAR road course racing for such a long period of time now, and the supercars will get to go here as well. We journeyed here last year, but that was when the curbs were just a wee bit flatter, and that's when the damage model was just a wee bit older as well, Dan. That is going to change the way that we drive. The lap time, the fastest lap time from qualifying last year was 107.2. We are nearly a second slower than that. That's how much the curbing's changed this track.
I mean, yeah, this has been a big shift to things in the past, year or so, as you said, since we last came here. And of course, also the fact that, just literally last week, all of a sudden, the major iRacing update being that the damage model is no longer old and new. It is simply what it is. I mean, technically, the old one exists now in memories gone by, and that is all. So for these drivers here, our Gen 2 platform does get the damage model as it hadn't had before. So that also, interactions between the car and the track is also going to be something to matter about, not just the changes to the circuit that have happened since last year as well. Let's keep that in mind.
Yeah, and that's going to be so critical as well. Could we see a number of safety cars here tonight? Could that change the strategy up? 250 kilometers is going to be the race distance here tonight. How are you going to string that together? 2 compulsory pit stops, those are required, but the pit stop window opens relatively early on. The pit stops here tonight, Dan, this is where you're really strong. Talk to me about the fuel drop here tonight, because it's not a big fuel drop that you've got to get added to the initial starting 111 litres these guys will have in the cars.
Yeah, no, it's not, because of course the short lap here, despite the fact they're on the power so much, we're seeing here a fuel burn of only around 2.7 to 2.9 litres lap. Now, in saying that, that's an estimated guess at best based on some data scraping I was able to do and some figures kindly provided before we got going live tonight. So it is very much an estimation. There will be drivers who might burn more on the high side if they're able to get on the power basically out of the corners earlier. That'll be where they, and if alternatively, if they're on the throttle slightly longer at the end of the straight, they'll be able to burn more fuel that way, of course. Alternatively, if you're in the pack and you are able to get on the clutch really early and just run all the way into turn 1, into the inner loop, the bus stop, and that penultimate corner, and really glide it in there, you could easily see that fuel burn be on the low side. So that is going to be important. We've got a rough idea that we're looking tonight somewhere between 65 to 75 litres of fuel required to add if you start with the full tank of fuel like we expect all the drivers to do so with. So yeah, looking at around that lap 26 marker. Could be as early as 24, 25, maybe even 23. They can make it home depending on how economical they are tonight.
Well, we're going to jump across and have a look at our series points because, again, the margins have changed and there's a big note that we're going to talk about in this top 10 in just a few moments. Dylan Rudd now leads the way by 20 points after last time out. Haref went okay for him, but it'll be that standing start that he'll be really trying to work on here tonight. Rick Kuznetsov drifts a little bit, but the guy who made a ton of ground was Andrew Gilliam, moves himself up within 18 points of his teammate. Another 20 on that. He's now within 30 points of the championship lead. Finished 4th here last year. That is a big note. Tom Freer has just about hidden himself from the world in terms of his results, in terms of his finishes. We've barely even mentioned his name this year. The two guys we've been talking a whole lot about, Jared Filsell and James Scott, the Speed Cafe Lobs esports team, they have just been putting speed into speed. They have got so much pace to burn of late. The Trans-Tasman guys that are now chasing them, they're in trouble. If they're going to resurge in this championship, it has to start now, and they're going to start taking points off of those guys. Big note, unfortunately, Brenton Hobson inside that top 10. I always say I curse someone with my articles that I write midweek and some of the predictions that I make. Brenton Hobson was the guy I cursed this week. Has had a hard drive get corrupted. His iRacing install's not been made in time at this point in time. He's not in the server as it stands. He is scrapping to try and get things ready to go so that he can join this race. He's got all of about 6 minutes left to try and register and get himself in. Might make it, just if he does make it. So that'll be the big key as a part of that one. So that's your top 10 in terms of your championship standings down. And was there anyone there that you're looking at and going, this guy's got to have a good night here tonight?
I mean, it's going to be, as I said, I think the main one we want to look out for is our drivers from, say, Trans-Tasman Racing. Obviously, we expect they will make their way up the order, recovering from the madness of Sebring for our season opener back at the start of this year. But yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head. Basically, arguably, it is the Speed Cafe Lobs esports cars that are the class of the cohort and the community in general in these cars at this stage. So realistically, you've got to find a way to get some points back on them. Whilst TTR, I'm sure, will be strong, they put themselves on. They got caught up in on the back foot of things at Sebring there, so they've got work to do. While they'll certainly be looking decent, it's going to make a championship challenge as the rounds tick by into the back half of this year, all the more harder. You did say Brendan Hobson's only got about 5 minutes left. Given the way qualifying works, technically speaking, if he doesn't make it during qualifying, he could still get in just when the race is about to get started, but that would mean effectively committing to a rear of grid start. So there is that consideration that would have to be kept in mind for tonight. So maybe there's a bit of wiggle room there for him in terms of time, but it would make it a whole lot harder to get through this race in a good way.
Yeah, so that's the difficulty that he's going to have to contend with as it all stands. This is practice results that you're looking at the moment. Have a look at the big name that's up there at the top, Jared Filstel once again. Now, how about Marcelo Rivera? His return to form over the last couple of rounds has been really, really good to see. He's sort of maybe not been in the best mind of things, and not necessarily at the start of the season was what he was really looking for. He's starting to find a little bit of pace as it comes through things. So it's been very, very good to keep half an eye on in the background for Marcelo Rivera. Times are good to start off with things. Madison Downs right there sits in P3, not into qualifying quite as yet, so these are just some markers just to sort of be a little bit aware of as we head into the qualifying, and that split qualifying format tonight as well, Dan, that's going to be really, really different than a lot of these guys are sort of used to. So we will have a split qualifying here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to split the field basically in half. The reason for that? The lap is exceedingly short. It is very, very difficult to get 45 cars room to do a lap around this track. So what we're going to be doing, 10 minutes per group, 45th car in terms of championship standing, all the way to 23rd in terms of your championship standings. They will run in group number 1. Group number 2 will then be cars 22 all the way up to car number 1 as they currently stand in terms of championship standings, which means teams are going to be split a little bit in terms of their ability to help each other out as well.
Yeah, you've got to make sure you've got your teammates had to have been around them at this point, so it's too late to be able to arrange things different to that. So that'll be one to watch out for in terms of who's got friends, who's going to have to do it by themselves. I would think more so in Group 1 than Group 2. But then again, we might have drivers who, again, running somewhat independent, have done a good start to the season and are on their own. You notice Blake Warhorse in the top 10 on points at this stage. I'm not sure if he's got anyone to help him at this stage, especially since Scott Gamble having departed WKNP for 9-5 Sim Sports as we got this season underway. So that would be, for example, a driver that could have probably worked with Blake. But now he's going to have to find some friends out there, either done that beforehand, or he's going to have to do that in the 10 minutes he's got out there on the track as well. I think the other thing to point out, Scott, as we look at the practice results, is just the gaps tonight. Because of the fact this is the closest thing we're going to get to an oval course in this championship, the fact that we've got 20 cars covered by a hair over 0.3 of a second, you can see there, another 0.3 of a second gets you back to 35th place, and then the last couple of cars in the field, it does sort of balloon out a little bit from there, but we've got 41 drivers covered by 1.29 seconds from first to 41st, to put it all in perspective.
Yeah, and we'll be keeping an eye on temperatures throughout the session as well, something just sort of else to put in the back of your mind as well. Track temperature is hovering right around 50 degrees Celsius right now, 25 degrees Celsius in terms of that air temperature, and there was a big northerly wind, and I was hastily grabbing my Google Maps to go and have a look at which direction the track actually sits, because I wanted to know if that was a tailwind running up into the bus stop, or how things stand from there. Other big thing to sort of think about is the way up through the S's. It feels very street course-esque, doesn't it, Dan? Because the walls, when you get into those S's on lap number 1, everything shrinks and condenses back into a real choke point as you crest the hill.
Decent track width there, 100%, but the line that you want to take is one line or bust. And the walls, as you said, at the very top of the S's are right there. In fact, this is a lovely shot. Basically, the grass there on the inside through turn 3, that's almost deceptive, because you can see there the Armco is literally on the white line as you enter the third turn on the right-hand side of the circuit. Then you get to the bridge there with that infield road going underneath as you then prepare to make the flick to turn 4. So you can see also, yeah, just sort of the darkening of the circuit where the drivers typically go in our preferred racing line here. There is such little room for error. You can maybe get 2 cars up there side by side in a racing situation, but that does require some give and take. And that's going to mean drivers, if they don't, obviously will be in a world of hurt if they try to commit going flat out. And someone there is expecting a bit of help on lap 1 at least to be able to get through there unscathed. As they then open up here onto the backstretch, they'll be able to get, well, 2-3 wide, but again, you then sort of condense into this choke point with the inner loop chicane. There is a big curb there you can use, but that's realistically at most a 2 wide entry and sort of section. And again, same sequence, same thing, Scott. It's ideally a 1 wide groove. So 2 wide is going to need give and take from drivers to make it work.
Yeah, and by the way, I did go and manage to get some directions as to which way the wind was flowing. It's a headwind as you fly up here into the bus stop. So that wind basically blowing head on into the camera as they run up that way, slowing our top speeds just a fraction as they run up there. Won't be speed assisting. What that does mean, though, is it's really, really good for downforce as they crest the S's as well. Cars won't really be copping a huge buffering through the breeze. Downforce will be working really nicely. Right, time for qualifying. Time to put your foot on the loud pedal, make some noise, and hopefully make some lap speed. It's going to be qualifying for round number 5, and it's for our bottom 22 drivers in terms of championship standings as well. This is going to be tough. This is going to be technical. And where is your dance partner? Because you will not be setting a lap on your own. One of your teammates, by the way, made his way into the championship as of this round. Debutant out here tonight, here, Dan. How's Tyson's feelings as he's settling himself in for 250 kilometres of racing here tonight?
Well, we'll see how it goes. Having asked me, obviously, about this when given the invitation to come and be involved, or basically join the field, whilst obviously we're at this point of the season where there is going to be basically no way to be in it for the points. And making the top 20 from whatever turn. So at this stage, it's more likely a case of, and for us, we don't run the supercar a huge amount either. So Tyson's been putting in some work. It's good to be able to say he was on the cusp of making it after qualifying earlier this year. But this is very much a case of trying to find some things, learn a few things for himself, and as a team for us as well. Hopefully try and figure some things out and just put some foundation together and maybe be able to start working towards maybe it will just be Tyson, but at the very least be more competitive. Just it's going to take some time to build up. And the other driver here on screen, I believe, Scott, and our second driver invited after some departures and withdrawals, that's Luke Richardson, who will be joining the series here tonight as well.
Yeah, another known driver, known quantity, knows that he's good enough to be here and just missed barely on qualification back into the series this year. Like you mentioned, Tyson was the first reserve. Well, Luke Mitchison was the second reserve. So in there, potentially on pace. Michael Taliancic actually car just in front of him, just barely missed out. And remember the bust up at the start end of the season in terms of the Altus Australia cars. Well, you can see Michael Taliancic no longer running the livery of the Altus Australia. He's, as of today, just joined Synergy Sim Racing. So for both himself and Job Stewart, who returns to the grid as well, will both be joining the ranks of the Synergy Sim Racing team. Right, what have they got in terms of qualifying? Well, Matthew Bowler skipped clear out at the front end of the field. He is not towing anyone around at this point in time. And that does mean he will be getting fresh air to this front splitter. What's the lap time going to be, though, for Matthew Bowler? In practice, it was a 108.476, relatively quick. He was only a couple tenths away from being inside of that top 10. And his first flying lap of the session of his 10 minutes worth of qualifying. He's going to come out of the last corner. The run to the start-finish line will be the first time on the board. Is it going to be a banker from the driver in the number 12? It is a little bit of a banker. He's about 0.2 of a second down on where he was. Scott Gamble's going to eclipse him and immediately jump to the top of the timing sheets. Although Forza El Navi comes through with a 108.308 straight to the top of the timing sheets, and Bo Albert's gone along with him. Dylan O'Shea's at a reasonable lap. So the 9.5 crew are going to be quick here tonight. Job Stewart back in the car, back in the series, and back towards the front end of qualifying. And the first lap's now starting to come through on the board. Dan, what do you think of those laps so far?
Drivers like El Nabi and Stewart, that's not looking too bad. They're just inside of 0.3 down on the absolute best times we saw in practice. And I think from what I can see, that would have been around those times right now as they stand. Would have been good for just in and around, I think, 10th or 11th in practice. So, those guys here, sort of top 4, I'd say top 4 to Griffin Gardner. Decent bankers. For the guys behind, it's a banker, it'll do, but absolutely they'll be needing to look for quite a bit more to get some improvement there and feel a little better about themselves. So it is going to be definitely, well, again, I'd say a waiting game, but we're already almost halfway into this opening group's allotment of time. So at most, they've got another 2 runs to get in. It's just being asked to confirm who didn't get a lap in this opening group. To be honest, I actually can't see anyone.
Thomas Freeman hasn't set a lap,
missing.
but I don't think Thomas Freeman's actually done a qualifying lap in the last couple of races, so I would expect that to be the case. One more driver who's immediately back out. It's actually Andre Yusuf, who's gone back out for his second lap straight away. But yeah, other than that, I think the bulk of drivers are actually out there for the first part of qualifying did manage to set a lap. Michael Whiting didn't set a lap, so he'll be one of those drivers. I think Luke Rosella isn't in the car as it currently stands either. Brian Borg failed to set a lap. And now they're going to queue up at the end of pit lane to go out and have another crack at things. Something that's really, really interesting to note was I was looking at pace and who was quick last season. Well, 9.5, reminder that Dylan Rudd was a part of that outfit this time last year, was actually right at the pointy end of things, but Dylan Rudd's departed, but Dylan O'Shea was quick as well. But the thing is, Dan, form guide this year, the changes to the track and those curbs is actually a lot more significant than I was thinking it was going to be. And the form guide doesn't necessarily match up because now you've got to have a car that's a lot more compliant over those curbs. Completely different style of setup.
It is true. I think the drivers here in a loop chicane is obviously the prime spot. You've got those 3 apex curbs where you're going to be absolutely hopping over to try and minimize the distance you take around this lap. They're the big ones, obviously. Everywhere else, the curbs are minimal, flat enough that we're really couldn't come into too much consideration. But yeah, that will be where time is gained and lost around the circuit tonight. If the car doesn't steady itself over the bumps, it's going to be a world of pain in many respects that you might end up in. As we're being told here, Brian Borg, 017, is one of the drivers in this opening group circuit, and yet there he is. He's actually a little further back from Matthew Bowler here, but no time on the board yet. And he might just be about the only driver out there at the moment who doesn't have a time to put things. Executives have been told also make that 2 drivers, the 025 and Michael Whiting, also joining Borgie at this stage in the session with no time on the board. So running out of time here, gentlemen. You've got maybe 2 more attempts to get one sorted and get a grid spot locked in.
Yeah, for Michael Whiting, it's not been necessarily the happiest of outings in this series thus far. Tonight might be a night where he just looks to just make sure he gets a clean finish on, and that actually could be very, very relevant. Staying clean, well, that's going to earn you probably a good finish here tonight. And you can just see there was a lot of talking about gear ratios. The drivers are going to be running different gear ratios from qualifying to the race, and you can just see Michael Whiting was running out of legs at the back end of straight. There was not really much more he could take out of that one. That will all change in the race as drivers will swap from a shorter gear ratio over to a longer gear ratio for the draft. Might help them save a little bit of fuel there as well. But for Forza El Nabi, what's it going to be this second time by? Is the lap time going to improve, or is it not going to? He has got a little bit of a toe. It'll be Scott Gamble that's just ahead of him. And look at Michael Whiting's backing up all the cars that are in behind him. So El Nabi's going to dive to the pit lane. He won't set another clean lap. What's Whiting got to put on the table? Is it going to count? It is. It's a 109.072. Scott Gamble just ahead of him will actually improve. Joe Stewart goes through to the top of the table. Griffin Gardner, though, from out of nowhere, all of a sudden grabs that top step. And at the moment, a 108.241, that is going to be extremely relevant when we see the second round of qualifying start to form up as well. And Joe Stewart, only 100th of a second further back as it sits in second place. Those are quick times relative to the pace we've seen thus far this evening.
Yeah, that's now more like it for Griffin. That bets him about 200ths over what he did in practice. So that's a net improvement for him there, without a doubt. Have to see though whether that will hold up drivers in the second round. Certainly might just have to say. Just a real question of whether the track is improved or basically gone backwards in terms of track state and performance on the circuit since practice. It really shouldn't have changed all that much. We are just proceeding through time in a linear fashion. Right, we've got a minute and a half on the clock as they come around into pit entry here. It's going to have to be a fast outlap from most of these drivers, and to think for most of them, they've still got to get out of the pits because they're only coming in just now. I get the feeling for a good couple of these guys here in the middle to the back of the pack, they're going to struggle to make it round without compromising the preparation or and go too fast on the outlap. Forza El Nabi getting out of the pit lane at the blue cone with about a minute and 12 left on the clock. Don't forget, a flying lap is a minute and 8. He doesn't have a huge amount of time to spare here, and that's if he wants to prep things nicely, he could also back people up behind, and that will really mess up the end of the session.
Yeah, well, the stewards will be watching for that. That'll be a no-go whatsoever. And Matthew Bowler's just immediately just going to shoot through and go, yep, I need to get this lap in. So he's going to absolutely go for it. And for Matthew Bowler thus far, 108.470. Yeah, that's a reasonable lap. And all things considered for Matthew Bowler, that's actually quite a good lap in terms of where he sits in terms of championship standings. It's only going to be about 4/10 of what you expect the pole time to be here tonight. And reminder, last year's pole time, 107.2. So we are 3/4 of a second. At the moment, we are a full second down on that, yet no one in this second group is going to get a lap in. So Matthew Bowler is going to be the only driver who is going to get a lap in. They've got 20 seconds to get back to the start-finish line, and they're more than 20 seconds away from the start-finish line at the pace they're doing. I see Bo Albert's just shot through, trying to get another lap in. Brady Baldwin's shot through as well. Forza Nabi's going to try and slingshot in behind them. And this is...
Going to get it. I think Bowler's
Bowler. Yeah, Bowler got to the line. We keep our eyes in the background of that shot. Here they all come out of the final corner. And checkered flag is out. They will not get a lap in. It'll be just Matthew Bowler will be the only driver who will be eligible to get this lap in. And it's got to be a good one if he wants to improve. He got a toe on the previous lap. Will he get any sort of improvement as it currently stands? And the times, they're not looking good. So we have to keep an eye on it. But I don't think he's going to improve.
Yeah, it's unlikely. Toe versus no toe. Maybe gets a little bit of a better run through one of these corners, but it's looking scruffy here through the inner loop chicane. I get the feeling that's going to be it on that one there. We actually was, speaking of things scruffy, he's going to commit anyway, so actually that's a little bit quite surely from there in terms of what we're seeing here tonight. But one thing I did want to touch on, we haven't really seen it here in Group 1, but having a chance... Okay, yep, there we go. It's definitely done in qualifying there for Matthew Bowler. So whilst he was the only one getting through there, as you said, no toe to work with. I also wonder if maybe just having to really hustle that out lap meant tyre preparation was hurting. And that meant that it was already going to be a rough case. But it does mean Griffin Gardner on top at the end of Group 1 with Job Stewart and Forza Nabi, your provisional top 3 in the session. I'll talk about that thing that I was going to discuss in a second here, but let's have a look at the provisional qualifying results in a second when they come up here on screen, Scott.
Yeah, so this is as it stands right now, and after 22 drivers were released and allowed to head out into the qualifying session, Griffin Gardner will stand at the top of the pile. Job Stewart will sit on second, only 100th of a second further back. For Forza Nabi, it's third as it currently stands. He's about 600ths of a second further back. Very, very tight in terms of things. Bo Albert's a 10th of a second further back. Dylan O'Shea, Zach Rattray White, Scott Gambin, Matthew Bowler, Ian Ford, Teo Sorono round out your top 10 right now. We'll throw it over the page to the second group, second half of the first part of qualifying. Michael Taliancic will be in 11th from Brian Borg, Andre Youssef, Damian Johnson, Luke Mitchinson, and Brady Baldwin, and Tyson Broad, the last qualifier to set a valid lap time. And, well, he's in here. He's trying to get some experience, and qualifying didn't go the way you want there, Dan. Any advice for the teammate at the moment?
No. I don't drive this car, so I can't really speak to it. I do everything else when it comes to regarding it. So the thing is also, again, this is probably like almost a crucible of a circuit to come to because the importance of getting every thousandth of a second here, more than anywhere else I'd say on the schedule this year, is going to be exposed. And so to be 2/10 off the next driver in the field certainly might look bad, but it just means every little mistake is amplified. Every little bit of draft missed is going to be exposed in terms of straight line speed and the sector times. So, I mean, look, and as I said, I can't speak to experience. The last time I drove this car, I think, was as an endurance co-driver, I think it was. So, like, my job was to look after the car, not to be able to be fast. And to be here, you got to be fast.
Yeah, well, he'll get an opportunity, and the other thing is he'll be aiming to see lap 64 at the tail end of the night. Right, we're going to be a minute away from releasing group number 2, which is going to have the entirety of our top 22 drivers in terms of the championship standings. This one is going to be a lot more busy session. It's going to be dramatic as well. Think about all the drivers that sit inside this top 10. Think about their hopes and their ambitions, and also think at the back end of the championship, inside your top 20, automatic ticket back next year. Don't have to come back through that qualifying series, because if something goes wrong with that qualifying series, not enough time to recover. It just takes a little bit of a weight off. In terms of the drama that's happened thus far throughout the season. I mean, talking to Andrew Gilliam, he said, man, the confidence is high, Dan, and we're, next round will be halfway through the championship, and he's building on things. He just finished uni last year. This is the first year he could thoroughly apply himself to just the sim racing part. That changes the confidence levels, and I think we're seeing it from Andrew Gilliam in particular.
I mean, yeah, I'd be curious to see if that is a change that we see here. Just whilst you were talking, we've had an update come through from Race Control. I don't know exactly what the particulars of this are. We'll hopefully get maybe some clarification. But the news is that for Forza Nabi, despite finishing third in that provisional qualifying session, he will be sent to the back of the field and starting from the pit lane for failing to comply from instructions from the race director. So I'll have to maybe listen into the radios from the start of qualifying to get a confirmation on what that was. It might have been perhaps... Actually, I have to go look. Did he just...
He was
when
finished
he got to the end of the session, I just want to see, did he do something wrong on the way back into the pits? Yes, he did.
So the instructions that was actually given is we're going to see the top 22 get released out of the pit lane as well. The instructions from the race director to the drivers was when that checkered flag flew, if you hadn't started a lap, you must immediately abort the lap and make sure that lap does not count. Forza Nabi pushed on, and that's why he'll be starting from the pit lane. Now, the critical, there's two ways to take this one. He didn't actually complete the lap, but even better news is that Brenton Hobson, even after I cursed him by writing an article saying, hey, he runs really, really quiet races and does a great job, I expect him to do well yet again, that curse has failed to go through, Dan, and he's got everything reinstalled. He is back out on track, but with very minimal prep time.
Honestly, it doesn't really matter that the prep time is minimal here tonight, I'd say. It checks the box of being able to get out here and be in the action, because there is no way to come back from missing a round of this. Not unless you are at the very top of every single race otherwise. And whilst Brenton has been certainly good, he hasn't quite been at the pointy end of things so far this year. Well, time to see now how our top 20-odd drivers go here tonight. It's 17 set times. They have 41 in total, so we should expect to see therefore 22 or 23 out here in this group. So, get to the action. It's Madison Down who's going to lead the train through turn one and up the S's in this group for the first time, as they are all packed together practically, nose to tail, barely a break in sight, as we watch these guys get their first laps on the board.
Will these be critical when the session comes to a close? How are they going to compare to the lap time set by Griffin Gardner and Job Stewart? And the first time through the chicane, look at how compliant Madison Downs' car is. And have a look at Blake Warboys just in behind him as well. Ran a phenomenal race last time out from Circuit of Jerez. Now it's going to be on his way out of the outer loop, using all of the available runoff, but not too much. You can gain time out there, but if you're using all that runoff, something's probably gone wrong with the lap. Have a look at the heat haze in the background. It is a scorcher in terms of track temp. The track temp's actually come down just a couple clicks, so you would expect lap times to be a touch faster. We get a touch of cloud cover. What's that going to do for the pace? Out of the final corner for the first time for Group 2 of qualifying. Madison Down, what's it going to be? Straight to the top of qualifying, and Griffin Gardner immediately walks one spot further back. Ethan Greengold's going to go into that front row alongside of him. Jake Maloney, how about the lap from him? Goes to the top of the timings. Andrew Gilliam slots in a second. That becomes third as Josh Anderson comes through and puts in a reasonable lap. Jacob O'Reilly gets a lap together as well. Moving further back, have a look at James Scott though on his first lap. It's 11th. That's the best that was possible for him. Jake Burton will be right in behind him in 12th. And now it all starts to trickle down and in. And Jared Filsell aborted the lap time. No time set for him thus far. This could be critical. He's got one less lap to get that time out of that 94 machine here, Dan.
He does. So, it's going to be very important. See, we now know that we're most likely going to get 2 runs at it, unless, well, I think he's going off sequence, so maybe he'll still get 2 runs in, I should say. 2 chances to set a lap. So that's important there to keep in mind. Of course, don't forget that when they call checkered flag, of course, just like in Group 1, will be allowed to keep going as long as they cross the line. This time they won't be called checkered flag. iRacing will just throw the checkered flag for them there. So there's obviously that in mind. So with everyone else piling into the pits, The other thing here is going to be critical is where does he come out relative to everyone who's now in? Because this might be messy. We've seen this before at other circuits. Phillip Island comes to mind this year where we had one driver, I think it was Mike Taliancic possibly, off sequence with the rest of the field. Apologies if it wasn't Mike, I'm getting my drivers mixed up here. But what it meant was that he tried to get through, I think it was around the Hayshed section, and as a result, that could be messy. Blake Warways is first out of the pits. He's closely followed by a few cars, so there will be a bit of traffic here in the S's for Phil Cell, unless these drivers are aware of what's coming down the front straight at speed.
Yeah, he is going to come down the front straight, and now he's going to have to try and make his way through. And Phil Cell's past a couple of the cars. Maloney will be the next car who immediately just gets out of the way. And you're right, it was Michael Taliancic all the way back at Phillip Island, but now he comes up on the rear bumper of Brenton Hobson. There will be a touch worth of the toe. Then he's going to have to swing to the left-hand side. Everyone's gotten out of his way thus far, so this will actually work. He is going to be able to set a valid lap time, and he got a touch worth of the draft as well, just to help. That worked out about as good as you could have hoped if you're a Jared Phil Cell fan. And the lap time, reasonable as he gets through the bus stop chicane. Now it's into the outer loop as he tries to get the foot planted. There's a couple wiggles, but you've got to have that in this car to get it rotated through the longer corners. And reasonably compliant as he skipped up and over the curbs as they shot out of the outer loop. Now it's to the second last corner, turn number 6. There's only 7 of them on the lap time. A lot of full throttle time, the final corner, the short shoot to the line. What has the Speed Cafe Lobs Esports driver, Jared Phil Cell, got for us on lap number 1 of his qualifying? It's a 108.310, and it's good enough for just outside the top 10. The difficulty for him now is he's got to get out of the way of everyone else that's chasing, but at least he'll be trying to get it back to the pits as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so there's the benefit there. He's not going to be backed off here. He'll be committed. Problem is, and that should be enough to get him back there in time out of the way. Just the main thing is, well, same thing. Going to be off sequence once again once we come around as everyone is getting this second run in. Drivers here at the front, maybe they'll get a third in, as you saw. It's hard to get here with this 10-minute format in the split qualifying. So through the inner loop they'll come once again. And this basically unbroken tree. Josh Anderson is the exception to the rule. I can see his number slow heading into that carousel second. So he's going to be off sequence now with the rest of the field. But you're seeing here anyone improving. There's a couple of positives at the top of the board. Maloney possibly looking to go faster than what he's done so far in this session. Wait to see here. Being told Phil Cell apparently was looking decent there, Scott, but lo and behold, no second lap on his tyres as the rest of the field comes in. They go Madison and Maloney. So there go TTR going to abandon their runs. For Blake Woolworth, P27, I'm not surprised he's going to commit to this one here. Can he improve? He finds 2 tenths, and that gets him a long way up. 10 spots gained in the process.
Oh, great goal, goes to the top. But that's going to be bested by his teammate. It's Marcelo Rivera. That hangs around for only a few moments as Jake Burton, the hard charger from last round, made the most spots up. Was under the weather at ref. He is not under the weather when you come to Watkins Glen. Back out, back in form, and Jake Burton back on top.
Nice little run there indeed. But again, yeah, finding hundreds. And look at that there. We're now 7 cars inside 1/10 of a second. Top 10, only 0.13 in it at this stage. Everything compressing ever harder, closer together. So critically now, let's look for this group here to come around. I reckon they're going to bet you be plenty all right here at this stage. Blake Woolboy is in front of this queue. They're going to have about 2 minutes left when they hit pit entry. When you then give it time to trundle down the lane here at Watkins Glen. As Woolboy is a bandit, I don't think he's realised those drivers behind were coming into the pits. I mean, everyone's coming into the pits. Blake, you've just sacrificed about 10 or 5 seconds or so to get in, but also being reminded that, well, it looks like for these drivers here, they are really going full attack on the in-laps, and that's what's got them the extra time here. So never mind that, they'll all get a third attempt here, and you can see they're all starting to get ready to get rolling, but who's going to be the first one past the cones? Scott, because no one wants to lead by the looks of things.
Nobody ever wants to punch the hole in the air. How selfish of them all to want to draft. And we've seen this from Formula 1 at Mons, and we see this every round of the Logitech Pro Invitational Series. The qualifying games, not only in full force, they are one of the star attractions. And indeed, they are the star attraction in terms of qualifying. I tell you what, Phil Cell's playing games with Jake Maloney. Whether or not he wants to be ahead of him, I think Madison Down's not going to have a great qualifying performance here tonight, and I don't think it's necessarily going to go his way. The other driver I'm sort of keeping half an eye on, Brady Myers, did manage to set a reasonable time. At 108.212, 4 thousandths of a second back from him was Andrew Gilliam. So that's 6th and 7th as it currently stands. And Gilliam sits right up at the pointy end of the championship standings, sits in 3rd. Well, Brady Myers is starting to take points out of our championship leader in Dylan Rudd as well. But for Dylan Rudd, he sits 18th. The pace just isn't there. He was supreme in qualifying here last year for the 9.5 outfit. Right now, 108.363. He's 2/10 away from Greed Galt, and Greed Galt's 3rd. He's a little bit more than that. He's about 2.5 tenths away from Jake Burton in the pole time. Running out of time in this session as well, 30 seconds. So now you've got to find who's your dance partner here down, and the games are certainly being played, and they're being played towards the mid and back of this pack, and you've got to give yourself enough room to get air to that splitter. If you don't get the air to the splitter that you're after, it's not going to work the way you want it to.
Yeah, find your teammates, get some space, and you got to get going. And look at this here. They're further back. While we look at Jacob O'Reilly, just go for it because he knows he needs to go. Oh, these drivers are so bottled up, they're not going to improve. There's about 10 or 15 drivers at the back of this pack who have all tripped over each other. And the last car through is James Scott in the 088, but I don't think he's going to get a chance to improve because they all tripped over each other so much they weren't at speed in the final turn.
Well, James Scott actually took the checkered flag, so this lap will not count for him. He's already received it. So now we keep our eyes basically from everyone that's ahead of James Scott. If I have a look, that's going to be Kurt Stenberg is the next car on the track, and yes, he didn't receive the checkered flag that time through. So Stenberg will be the last of the cars across the start-finish line to be relevant. Dylan Rudd's aborted his lap. It's not been a good one thus far for this qualifying session. Stenberg slapped the wall incredibly aggressively as they cut their way through the bus stop. Pole position from Watkins Glen. It's one of the more important ones of the year. You've got to be towards the front end of the train. There are drivers that are scrapping for everything they've got in terms of qualifying pace. I'm looking at Robbie Gibbs. I'm looking at Adam Briggs. I'm looking at Jared Filsell. Filsell, by the way, is only 14th at the moment. This lap has got to be big for the driver in the 94. He's had so much pace over the last couple of rounds. He's put on such a clinic in terms of things. Down will be the first car across the start-finish line. Does he improve? He does improve for Madison Down. It goes to 4th spot. Maloney goes to 2nd. Back onto the front row. Jake Burton has pole. Ethan Green-Gold is going to steal it. And there's still a couple of cars. No, that's it. Ethan Green-Gold, the ERT driver, did not go his way early on in the season. So much damage to bring. Blown engine at Phillip Island. He's been quick since then, and it's back to the top for Ethan Green-Gold.
That's a fantastic job there. In fact, also quickly, don't forget here. Our top 5 is Evolution, Trans-Tasman, Evolution, Trans-Tasman. We don't have anyone from Lobs Esports until you get to Jared Filsell in 9th place there, if I'm not mistaken. That is, whilst this obviously is a session that is a little outside the norm, this is something that I wasn't expecting to see based on the results that have happened so far in this season. But, well, that's going to set the stage for the racing actions. We now have a look at the grid here for this 5th round of Logitech Pro Invitational Series, Scott.
And he took it in the dying moments of the session. It's Ethan Green-Gold who comes through and grabs a pole position. It's by 0.04 of a second. When we get into some of these margins, you'll look at that and go, that's actually quite a lot. It's going to be Jake Burton who'll start off alongside of him on the front row. And for Jake Burton, a lot of positions gained at the last round. Qualifying was his difficulty. He's already gone ahead and ticked that box. In behind these guys, Jake Maloney, Marcelo Rivera are going to be on the next row. We'll throw one row further back and we'll get back to Madison Downer and Josh Anderson, who are going to be off alongside of each other for the Trans-Tasman at row number 3. For row number 4 to be Brady Myers and Andrew Gilling. We'll see how that row goes for both of those guys. They've had a stoush already this season. Could it be another one here tonight? Then we'll get back to row number 5. Speed Cafe Lobs Esports drivers. Jared Filsell will be on the inside of that row, off alongside of Griffin Gardner. Griffin was quick here in qualifying last year. In behind these guys, Job Stewart. Well, it was Altus Australia. As of today, Synergy Sim Racing. So that one's getting updated. Rick Kuznetsov has a shot at the championship. He'll need to progress from 12th on the grid. The next row back will be Forza El Nabi and Tom Freer, which, remember, Forza El Nabi will have a pit lane start off of that row. 15th to 16th will be Adam Briggs and James Scott. Scott's worst qualifying performance thus far this season. In behind them, Bo Albert and Hayden Veld, both of the ERT drivers on row number 9. Before we get back to row number 10, where it's Dylan Rudd and Dylan O'Shea's, both the Dylans on that row. Kurt Stenberg will be the first driver outside of the top 20. Off alongside of him will be Blake Warboys. Next on the grid behind them will be Zach Rattray White and Scott Gamble. Brenton Hobson did manage to make the field. It'll only be in 25th in terms of qualifying, not a lap set in practice, but he will be thanking his lucky stars he got in. He'll be off alongside Robbie Gribbs. Jordan Ross and Matthew Bowler will be on the row in behind him. Ian Ford and Teo Sorono will round out our top 30. Jacob O'Reilly and Michael Taliancic will make up the first row outside of our 30 on row number 16. Sean McNamara and Brian Borg will be off row number 17. Andre Youssef and Damian Johnson will be in behind them. From there, it'll be Luke Mitchinson and Brady Baldwin. And Tyson Broad at the last of the qualifiers. There will be a few drivers starting from the rear end of the field. Will be Thomas Freeman, Michael Whiting, and Luke Rosella. Will have a pit lane start as well for incident points accrued. Well, Dan, that is the racing grid, but we're now going to throw to a segment that we get to do on this one. But for the first time, the naming rights sponsor, the Gamesmen, join us for their first ever grid walk from Watkins Glen. It's going to be the driver from pole position. It's going to be talking to Ethan Grigalt. Dan, I'll leave you with him.
All right then, Scott. Well, Ethan, congratulations first of all for getting the pole position here tonight for this race. How important was that for you to be able to start off the front row here and right at the front as well for good measure?
To be honest, I'm pretty surprised to be on pole. I mean, we're pretty quick in practice without toes, so I thought we were going to be up the front somewhere, but to stick it on pole, which is my first pole in the Pro Series, is bloody awesome. And not sure if I've put myself in the best position because this is a bit of a draft fest race and there's going to be a lot of fuel saving, so I'm not sure if I'm in the best strategic position, but however it goes, you know, we're number one in qualifying, and that's pretty cool to take away.
It's a good point you make there, indeed, about being obviously the front's not ideal when everyone's got an opportunity to draft off you there. In considering all of that, I guess, is there sort of any thoughts in mind about maybe trying to let up P1, or given the fact that it means you can be ahead of any possible issues behind you, I should say, not guaranteed, of course, but could be risky here tonight, that maybe just staying up front and just see how it happens after maybe the first round of stops and then adjusting as you go be the best plan?
Well, like I joked a bit about getting a bad start and slotting in a P2. That wouldn't be a bad idea, but I don't know, we'll just have to see how the race plays out. I won't reveal too many of my cards, but to be honest, I haven't necessarily planned for this position, so it's going to be a bit on the fly, this one.
Yeah, well, just having a look back at how things have gone for you in the season so far. Unfortunately, a rough couple of rounds to open the season, but at the Red Bull Ring coming home second, and last time out at Jerez coming home in sixth, looks like you're sort of on the way back up to where you have been in the past, and certainly I'm sure you'd expect to be. Looking forward to keep that momentum going, of course, here tonight, and then again, sort of anything in particular you think into maybe other drivers and teams that might be a real challenge here this evening based on what you've seen so far tonight?
I think it's just going to be entirely strategy, to be honest. So we know the ARTs have the car pace, but it's hard to get away at this track. So it's going to be all strategy. If you're somewhere near the front with 10 laps to go, I think that's when all hell's going to break loose. So we just got to put ourselves in a good position for the end of the race and then see what happens.
Well, indeed. Fingers crossed then for you and everyone out there tonight, as well as your teammates. Hopefully have a chance to chat to you after the race, Ethan. Good luck out there.
All right, thanks up, boys.
Well, with that said and done there, Scott will now turn to our next driver on the Gamesman grid walk here, and it will be the man right alongside Ethan Grigalt. I hand to you to chat with Jake Burton from second place here.
Jake, you were feeling a little bit under weather all the way back at Jerez. I didn't think you were feeling that under the weather that all of a sudden you qualified right up on the front row, mate. That one come a little bit out of nowhere?
Yeah, more or less. As I said in my chat with you during the week, mate, with Hobbo, it's been a bit tricky to get motivated for tracks like Jerez. I reckon that place is a bit of a dump, to be honest. But I love this place. Plus, I read your article this morning that said you had no confidence to get on the podium, mate. So I thought we'd get up in there.
Hey, sometimes you got to fight. I know with you, Jake, you talk smack about Jake Burton, he gets fired up, he does his best works. Maybe there was a little bit of psychological play on my part.
I'm glad that you're rooting for me, mate. It's always good to hear.
Mate, in terms of things, though, this place, they call it the Bull Ring. It is not an easy track to get around in terms of racecraft. What's the race plan looking like?
Well, I was saying to Ethan before, I think this track, usually the race is won in the last 10 laps. So I think, you know, I think most of the guys up the front are pretty clever. So I think we'll likely see some pretty much straight line racing, not a lot of passing, lots of fuel saving at the start of this one, and then we'll see where it all plays out after that last pit stop. So yeah, that's sort of my plan, is to sit behind Ethan, save as much fuel as I can, and then see what happens.
Other than that, mate, get the head down, and hopefully we'll be chatting to you at the back end of the race, brother. Good luck, and go well.
Cheers, mate. Have a good call.
From there, we're going to take a step deeper into the field and we'll be chatting to the driver that is off of 18th on the grid here tonight. It's going to be another of the ERT drivers. It's going to be Hayden Veld. Dan Yeaman with more.
Yeah, cheers for that, Scott. Well, Hayden, it's been a season of up and down. Unfortunately, the last couple have been more down than up. But you're in the top... Oh, sorry, pardon me there. Hayden joins us here now. You're in the top half of the field for this one here tonight. It's been a bit more up and down this season. So how are you hoping tonight goes out, given you're here roughly in the mid-pack to kick things off?
I'd be happy just to finish, to be honest. With all the changes to the car, tight track, anything can happen tonight. So if I could finish, ideally in the top half, it'd be a pretty good result, I feel.
I've had a chance to talk to the front row of Ethan and Jake tonight, and both of them have said that they're expecting this one to be a long strategy game that really doesn't play out, and really we know how things are going to go until the final 10 or so laps. Back here in the mid-pack, does that sort of feel any different for you, given that you're going to have drivers around you on all sides probably at the start of this one, or is that going to be sort of the same for you once you get things underway here?
I feel like it's going to be roughly the same for everyone. It's going to be a bit of a follow the leader type race, I reckon, with all the fuel save and everything going on. So I think there's a whole lot you can really do in strategy unless you want to go off sequence. So we'll see what they do, and we'll figure it out from there.
Well, just thinking, last thing, speaking of your strategy and stuff, you've got Bo Albert there, working teammate for yourself alongside. You've got Ethan and Marcelo roughly together up front. I can also see Ian Ford and Matthew Bowler closer together, towards the back of the pack, about have been 28th and 29th respectively for them. Having teammates going to be critical here tonight, and how do you think you can work together as a team as you currently split up in pairs at this stage?
I might be useful, but I feel it's going to be one big line, so there's not a whole lot you can really do. Maybe you can, we could both go a sequence together or something like that, and use your teammate to draft for a bit to move up the field a little bit. So that's definitely a possibility. But yeah, it's not too much, I don't think. But yeah.
Well, just under a minute to go until you get the green flag. Thanks for chatting with us there, Hayden, on the Gamesman Grid Walk tonight. All the best out there, and hopefully, you do see that checkered flag.
Thanks, Matt.
Well, that'll do us there, as Hayden will now get ready to go racing here, Scott. And now the drivers, as I said, well, for those who haven't talked to us, they've been settling in. And now for everyone, it's time to settle in and get ready to go racing from this 5th round of the Logitech Pro Invitational for 2024.
Something interesting I want to put to you, Dan. Safety cars. It's been a couple of rounds since we've seen that safety car come out. New damage model, big curbs, kind of newish sort of big change to the car. It's the biggest change that we've seen in the life of this car. Safety cars, how many are you betting on here tonight?
Let's go over-under on 2 of them. And I'll hedge my bets with a bit of margin either way on that one there. As the clock strikes 0 here, Scott, so the revs will rise from our field here for round 5 of Logitech Pro Invitational from Watkins Glen International is underway, and it's a set on tyre tracks where our pole sitter Jake Burton will lead the field to turn 1 as they fan out 2-3 wide behind as they make it into this first corner.
Yeah, Burton gets it. Gets a great getaway, and we were talking to Ethan Greengold. He said, hey, maybe not getting a bad start. Well, sorry, getting a bad start won't be a bad thing. Well, he has gotten that bad start, so maybe he's just projected just a little bit. The guy who has projected his front splitter ahead of the field is going to be Jake Burton. Stella Rivera is going to settle into 2nd place. Jake Maloney and Madison Down are going to run out your top 4 as they run down the straight through the S's on that first lap. And Ethan Greengold still sliding down the field. Didn't quite get sorted into the train and then had to go a touch defensive on their first run through the bus stop for tonight. 250 kilometres, 250 chances to see if you can win one of these things. And it's going to be Jake Burton and Marcelo Rivera to go toe-to-toe for the first lap tonight.
Trouble towards the back on the exit of that inner loop chicane. Mike Taliancic is stuck in the wall, I think, in the 777 machine. No, he gets going. So we will stay green here on that one, but that car is now heavily damaged. It's one of 3 cars with a mechanical black flag on this opening lap, and an iRacing black flag from Sean McNamara, so he must have jumped the start, I would think. So he will peel in to the pit lane and get back out there. Now, others who drives mechanical black flags are Andre Youssef in the 900 for Vermilion Esports, and Sean Ross, who's actually just probably completely out of the server, so that's going to be a disaster for the Synergy Sim Racing 143 the leaders. They're climbing up the hill once again here on lap number 2.
Yeah, they've got a problem though. Michael Taliancic is still on the short chute out of the outer loop. And look at this horde of cars that are on their way. That is Taliancic. He's trying to get it back to the pit lane. Does not want to cause a safety car, but they are so close. They've just shot through the background. You're going to see them come through the bus stop. Burton nearly gets overtaken as Marcelo Rivera gets nice and close. Jake Maloney's sitting right there as well. They are going to be so close to Taliancic. He just might get to pit lane, but it's going to be super, super tight. He's on the run to the final corner. He's in the grass and the thing is not controllable. Will he make the lane? He's out of the final corner. I think he's okay, Dan.
If he can hang on to it and stay in the pit entry space, he'll be good. Yep, so he's in right as the field comes through the final corner. So mainly the critical thing is there, as long as he was clear of the apex, everyone obviously take that racing line and swing out to the outside wall. Whereas, of course, he goes tight on the way in. As we've now got some moves in this opening group. Madison down up the inside of, I think that's Maloney it is, but doesn't work there for him. Maybe Cook Hansen having a go at, pardon me, Ethan Griggolt in all of this. Side by side from Griggolt, and now Madison down at the top of the hill. They touch, but both cars hang on to it, but it now packs up this group. You've got Griggolt fending off down Anderson and Myers, and Jared Philsell now watching in the background as in we go once again, still too wide at some points. Not quite clear until they finally get to the middle of the inner loop chicane.
My word, they are just on each other. There was a little bit of NASCAR style bump drafting from Josh Anderson as he pushed Ethan Griggolt past his teammate Madison down. We'll keep an eye on the background of this shot because this is how it all happened on lap number 1. Tom Freer, we saw all out of shape. And that's how Tom Freer ended out of shape.
Jordan
and
Ross.
that's how we got into, sorry, it's Jordan Ross, my apologies, into Michael Taliancic. And that's how Taliancic's night ended.
Oh, that is brutal. Jordan Ross has had a massive issue there with hardware of some kind, it seems. And then Mike Taliancic is just the first person to be in the wrong place. And as a result, cleaned up. No fault of Jordan Ross, no fault of his own either. Brutally for the two of them. That will practically be their race is opening up for the season. Jordan Ross is going on fifth, mechanical black flag left, so tally is fixed. 7. So here the field back live is on lap 4. He's still in the pit box in that car from Stubbs. Side by side, going on up the hill. Try and get into a rhythm at Huntersfield. It is absolutely better. But at the front of the field, Jay Burton's still leading nicely, Scott. And as you did mention briefly as part of the pre-race coverage, OG Original Gaming Gear hard charger from round number 4. Now doing the good work here once again.
Yeah, so OG Gear come on board. The hard charger each round gets themselves a new pair of sim racing gloves. And to Jake Burton, he made the most spots up a circuit to Jerez. As much as he didn't like that place, as much as he wanted to set it on fire, and earned him a pair of sim racing gloves. And now he's at the front end of this chain, and hopefully those sim racing gloves will be helping him to handle that car and keep pushing out at the front end of the town. Maloney now has managed to get his way past Marcelo Rivera, so it's TTR set 1 and 2. They finished very strong last year, but their qualifying wasn't great. This year, it's the other way around. Shoes a little bit on the other foot. Now we'll look a little bit deeper in terms of the pack as his car's going down into turn 1. Joe Stewart was on the elbows out with Brady Myers, and Myers is starting to sink through the field. We'll have to keep our eyes on this one because Griffin Gardner and Brady Myers were still side by side. Gardner's had the lift out. Myers is on the power, still trying to climb through, and you can just see why they call this place a bullring. Rick Kuznetsov was looking for an opening.
Trouble.
He's not going to find it. There's trouble somewhere. Where's the trouble, Dan?
Turn 2, Tom Freer on the entry. Hasn't even made it up the S's. That 707 Synergy Sim Racing car, the other purple Mustang from the SSR crew, is completely obliterated. And I think we are going to get our first safety car of the night here on lap 5 as he's stuck barely off the racetrack there. And that is going to surely need just wait for
there's the big stand. There's the big stand, by the way.
Big stand from O'Shea.
Griffin Gardner was really sorry. You're right. It was good. Dylan O'Shea was trying to advance the position. Safety car called and deployed. So we're going to get that safety car. Everyone filing in. Free pit stop? Yes, please. Although some down at the tail end of the field will look at this and go, man, I just want some track position. I need some track position. I've got to get my way out of this. They might go with a really, really short field. This is the action from the rear end of the field. Brian Borg is the other car that Freer is going to get in contact with, and Borg rejoined the track at an odd angle and just kept coming along.
That angle there doesn't look good for Brian Borg, that's for sure, but maybe if we get one different angle of it later on, might be good thing. Let's watch the race off pit road if we can here. And it's going to be Burton who gets away here at the front. So number 8 will stay at the front, but he's followed out by Maloney. And it's Rivera Grigol as well. So going to be in your top 5 running there by Madison down. So there's also some discussion about who was in what place coming into the pits. Given the safety car had been called right as they piled in. Yep, you can see there drivers coming out of the pits right into the right by Tom Freer, and then also accelerate check up. Safety car now collecting the front of the field up the essence.
Well, we haven't had the safety car for a number of rounds, and yeah, it's came in. By the way, have a look at the pit lane times. Josh Anderson took a huge fill, takes him from right up at the pointy end of this thing, and you'll fall just a little bit down throughout the standings. Want to keep half an eye on Jared Filson. I think he's gained a couple spots in terms of that one as well. On the original Game of Gear replay, this will be on board with Brian Borg. And I want to keep an eye on what his car does on the exit of the corner here. So there's going to be Tom Freer arrive to his inside. Probably hear him, can't see him. That doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, it really just looks like it's coming. I mean, there's a bit of leeway there with the curb and such, but yeah. So that just makes it look like it's a case of coming back a little bit on circuit there, and Freer's giving him space, and it's not been enough. As we're going to go to one more OG Gear replay on board inside the cockpit this time. Yeah, back over the curb. Not a great look there again, as you said.
But you can see the car. That shot actually makes it look better than I thought it was, but I still don't like it. Doesn't look pretty, and there'll be some questions to answer for Brian Borg. For Matthew Bowler, unfortunately, pit lane entry was not his friend, and there's going to be a few cars right in the rear end of the field that are taking some damage repair. Tom Freer, his night will be over. That was the first time I've seen a supercar with a wheel ripped off. But for Michael Taliancic, this is an opportunity to perhaps get that car repaired, get himself back in the race. There was actually somebody else I saw with that meatball flag early on, and it was one of the Vermilion sim racing cars. I think it might have been either Sorono or Andre Yusuf was the other one I was thinking.
Can't confirm it was Andre Yusuf who had issues. Looks like has been able to get that fixed enough in the pits. I'm just trying to look back at Matthew Bowler, why he's in the pits. Oh, he's been pushed into his own teammate by the 222 of Jacob Rice. So that's what he was on the radio about, because he was asking for pit entry to be reviewed. So a bit of a stack up on the way into the pits through the final turn has meant, because they were just coming off racing speed, and the second guy was called, and then trying to get themselves in position, and then just a little bit of a push from Jacob Riley in the 222 from Vermilion Esports into Matt Bowler. We'll see it here on the next of our OG replay, Scott, and it's just there's the push.
You can understand why. Everyone's trying to feed themselves in. And by the way, there is a very interesting point that I want to sort of put in the back of your mind. Is there's going to be a few cars at the tail end of the field will come back down for another top off. This is live pictures, and Jordan Ross is still in the race and still kicking. By the way, something I just wanted to keep in the back of your mind was that yellow line on the track at the pit lane entry for Watkins Glen. That is not relevant for the pit lane entry. Drivers can cross that one. Pay no mind to that. That will not be in play here tonight.
Yeah, no, it's not. It is one of those ones that doesn't doesn't matter, despite the fact this is just sort of a part of the pit rules and such. We have had confirmation in the meantime from Racing Control. The safety car will be in here at the end of lap number 7, and we'll get back to racing once again, and then see who can settle in. Most drivers here, as you said, with a few exceptions, have just taken the fuel they could get in whilst changing over tyres. Josh Anderson, though, he's only sacrificed about 1.5 seconds in stationary time. I'll get some numbers for the top 10 at this stage and confirm them for you here as to what that means for fuel at this time.
So something else I just want to put in the back of everyone's mind, for everyone that's watching these cars come down through the lane for a second time, change the rules happened last year, I believe after the Road America round actually, that you can only clear one of the 2 compulsory pit stops per safety car period. So these guys that are coming back down, they will still have one more compulsory pit stop. It'll be a touch shorter, and the thing I always say is if you haven't got track position, stay out and get some, or get yourself some strategy position, and that's what the guys at the tail end of the field have done. And for Andre Yusuf, some damage repairs as well, trying to keep himself relevant and maybe put some points on the board. Tom Freer's car is destroyed. New damage model comes. We get a safety car. The series changes. Jake Burton, in the meantime, doesn't change his position, still leads the way. and he will have control of the field. Safety car has now returned to pit lane. We are going to see 39 V8 supercar drivers go back to green flag racing. Actually, it's going to be 40. One more of them has rejoined the race. It was Jordan Ross, and Jake Burton is going to restart the race nice and early before they even get to the final corner. Run down the start, finish straight. Him and Jake Maloney are going to see if they can skip clear. Trying to go for an overtake in the background is going to be Ethan Griegold, and that will be nice and easily done. That'll be the two teammates communicating, working together. And Ethan Griegold's got an ally around him, which he hasn't had for a little bit of time, and you can see it's pushing him to greater heights. For Marcelo Rivera, these two might work together throughout the race.
You would think so. As we watch everyone build speed once again, you see basically everyone's going, note that in Ford, I think taking some extra stops, I think for damage repair, is off the back of the trains. He's going to have some extra work to do at this point in the race. But the rest of the field, single file through the inner loop chicane on this occasion. We'll carry on at this stage as our first penalty of the race has been issued here. And as a result, it's Ryan Ford, number 7, indeed has been classed with an unsafe rejoin there, bringing out the lap 5 safety car. He will be taking it to it down the pits for a drive for Scott.
Yeah, and we all said it didn't look good, and stewards thought the exact same thing. So at least that's been nice and consistent here tonight. Job Stewart's enjoying a good run of form deep inside the top 10, and Jake Burton goes ahead and sets the fastest lap of the race thus far, so that's going to change the pace to things. And Ethan Griegold just had a huge snapper oversteer as he bounced up and over the curbs at turn 1. That is going to put some heat through the rear tyres. What do supercars drivers always say here, Dan, about tyres and heat?
Don't.
Yeah, don't. It's about all they need to say. Well, Ethan Griegold's got a job to do here. Can he chase down Jake Maloney and keep going? And this might be the original Game of Gear replay. The snap of oversteer. Watch him hop the curbs on the exit out here.
Oh, yep, it's not much, but it's enough. It'll make those tyres feel a little more unpleasant now in this stint. Especially if it happens early on. Apparently can be a little more harmful with the tyres. And there's not a lot of time around this circuit to really let them breathe as well. I mean, the corners aren't too severe. The main tyre to watch out for around this place, I was told, is to be the left front. Might be the left rear if you're a little, well, lead foot with your right foot. But yeah, you're leaning on that left front through turn 1, up the S's through turn 2 in particular. Then, of course, turn 5 at the carousel and the final corner. The right front doesn't get pushed much. I guess you could say here, turn 3 as you come back over the hill. You're leaning on that right front a little bit, but yeah, obviously being this clockwise oriented circuit is very much a case of being working the left sides more than the rights.
Yeah, well, they're going to try and keep themselves going, keep themselves moving in terms of the racing as it currently stands. There's going to be an interesting thing that's just crawled in the back of my head, and I think there'll be a number of drivers that'll be starting to think about this as well. If we get another safety car here, Dan, prior to lap 26, let's say prior to lap 20, so we're outside of fuel range as well, do you pit again? And how much fuel do you need for the last splash?
I was going to say getting your compulsory stops out of the way is good, but I don't see why. I don't think you'd want to. Bit of issue at the penultimate turn. Teo Sorono and Brenton Hobson have somehow both ended up off the circuit there. What's happened here? It was an attempted pass by the 88 of Hobson, and it hasn't worked out by the driver.
And hang on, keep your eyes on, because there's movement coming in this shot as well as they try and squeeze down into turn number 1 to the inside. And I believe that's Rosella who's trying to cut his way through, by the way. Down the inside, going to move up? No, yeah, it is Luke Rosella.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks since we've seen him in the series. Back here once again after serving a pit lane start. The license the third of our logs esports entrance here. So, it was up the inside. Jake O'Reilly in the 222 had a nose going into the inner loop chicane, but he is now in the runoff. Will rejoin. Has some damage to his name, but that's just going to be more time, it seems, as we've got another OG here replay to pick this one up. Scott, go back to Hobbo and Sorono first. So into the penultimate turn, I saw from another angle a tiny bit of front locking from Hobson, and he just runs the tiniest bit wide into Sorono, tags both cars and unsettles them both. As we'll then go back to live pitches for a second and pick up Jared Philsell. Now threatening the top 5 there is, what have you got?
Madison Down just about got overlap on Marcelo Rivera, and the problem that he's now got is he's had to check that run up, and you can just see the cars crawling all over the road as they go through. The right-hander at 2, the left-hander, yeah, it is the right-hander at 2, the left-hander at 3, and the right-hander at 4 as well, and that is how much fuel Jared Philsell is saving, because he was right against the rear bumper of Madison Down, and this top 6, there's nothing between them. Basically, from Jared Philsell to Jake Burton is covered by a second.
Nothing here at all. No major surprises there, that's for sure, with the way this track works out. Yeah, you have to go a little further back before we start seeing the gaps open up. You saw that from Jared Philsell, didn't even think about attacking Madison Down that time in the Olympic chicane. He's more than happy to ride with and get in a rhythm, save the field, and try and get him in the second stop later on.
It was Josh Anderson, I just saw, had a huge lot of counter steer cranked into the thing at the final corner as well. Down to the inside, Andrew Gilliam's just dived it in on Joe Stewart at turn 1. Really get that job done. They're going to bang panels on the exit, over the curbing. They get to turn 2, and Gilliam's picked off another spot. He'll move up to P8. And from where he started, a little bit deeper in terms of the field, it was 9th spot. He's managed to grab 1 spot. There's blocking, there's games going on just up the road as well. Marcelo Rivera was blocking Madison Down to the right-hand side of the road. And it's the left-hand side for us, drivers right, as they cut their way through. And as the horde of V8 supercars makes their way across the bus stop chicane, I wonder, it's called a bus stop, I wonder if there is a queue for a bus here, and they're all just starting to lose a little bit of patience.
I mean, you're asking drivers here to be patient. Well, in saying that, Madison doesn't look super aggressive at this stage. I mean, I think certainly will follow Marcelo for the draft. As further on back, Stewart's gone up the inside of Gilliam to take back position number 8 at the final turn. Gets the job done with the tiniest bit of a brush. It's going to open towards Brady Myers up the inside as Marcelo attacking for P2 up front.
Yeah, and all of that waiting, it's all starting to come undone. Nobody's lining their P's and Q's anymore. Marcelo Rivera's going to lose a spot to Madison Down. Now he's going to have Jared Philsell all over him if he's not careful. And have a look up front, because Ethan Greek-Gault's back to 2nd place as well now. Now he's starting to really harass Jake Burton. Will he have a go, or is he going to back out? He has a little bit of a go, and then backs out a little bit of it, but he is so close to the rear bumper, and they are getting closer and closer and closer every single lap. And now Marcelo Rivera is going to dive it back down the inside. He's going to make contact with Maloney as they get to the outer loop. The powder keg is getting set up, and somebody's going to drop a match here, Dan. At some time in the near future, they make contact. My word, we are moments away. This thing could explode. We are sitting on a powder keg, and back through goes Jake Maloney back to 3rd. We're just waiting. It's something's going to happen. Maloney dives into the inside of Greek-Gault. He's not waiting.
3 wide.
Do make contact. 3 wide in the background as well. It's all going off. It's absolutely going off. And now here comes Marcelo Rivera. He's going to lift a little bit. 3 wide on the run into turn number 1. Down's going to go through the middle. There's contact. Down was out of shape, out of control. Out of here at the exit of turn 1.
Oh, now he's got to get back on the circuit, Scott. We've seen this go wrong once tonight, but it looks like he's just found somewhere to slot in. Back in behind Ethan Greek-Gault. As, oh my word, it's been absolute pandemonium around here. How's this as they get back in line for a moment up the exits, but then it's back out of line.
Because here comes Jared Philsell. Philsell's going, well, if they're going to race for it, I'm going to quit the fuel saving. Gave him a push, and then settled back in line. Dan, they're going crazy. What are you saying to your driver if you're a spotter, if you're a crew chief, if you're a team manager right now?
It's so hard to say. You've just got to have your eyes on stalks swiveling around here, of course, because you need to just try and hold a position in the queue. You need to try and manage your fuel and just obviously, and who is it? Yeah, don't break the car. Well, yeah, no kidding. They definitely don't want to be breaking the car. Don't need to be breaking out Samir at any point in time. Yeah, the main thing is how he's going to move. So, you know, I get it. We're not even 1/4 of the way into this race, and apparently we're getting very aggressive already in trying to find some runs and moves. And the main thing, of course, the second gives drivers the front light. We've now got 7/10 he won't be able to break that, so he can just save a bit more, I would presume, at this stage, unless it's going to be a case of, well, Maloney, his teammates in second, may be able to control that and keep giving Jake that margin at this stage. I think we flash it up on screen for a moment whilst all the madness is happening. Second race control decision of the night. Scott has come in. 15-second time penalty for Jake O'Reilly for careless driving on the pit entry on lap 5. So that contact with Matthew Bowler as they came into pits.
Yeah, remember that pit lane. So what happened out of that was Matthew Bowler had a speeding in pit lane penalty assessed to him by iRacing. That's not controlled by the stewards. They cannot get to that in time to clear that one, and then they have no responsibility to do so as well. So that is all assessed by iRacing, but it wasn't his fault, and that's why Jacob O'Reilly's received that one. So there's a bunch more for the stewards to handle as the night goes on, but it is bump and grind. It is standing room only. Oh, and our battle pack basically goes, I think we tested this, about a year ago now, I think, Dan Yeaman, when we were playing around with graphics. The battle pack, if we were to get it up on screen, only goes to 21 places. There's 33 cards in the train.
Oh no, you can make it as long as you want. It's more the issue of if you make it stupid long, it's just another timing tower. There's no real value in doing that. See here, field making their way in once again. There's been another decision issued by race control. That is a no further action this time by. So what has been determined, it's going to be coming through in a second, I do believe. He's going to be inset between Taro Sorono and Brenton Hobson. Has been deemed NFA. And separate to all that, unfortunately I did notice a couple of problems there. That you've said time and again that apparently when I commentate, my teammates have trouble. It's my Tyson's internet tonight has decided it's going to be a problem and dangerous to the point that he's out of the races. Meanwhile, Rivera on Maloney that'll be P2 there, so going to break up the trans-Tasman control right at the very front.
Well, nobody can break out of this train. Let's start to have a little bit of a look and a little bit of a think about lap times. Fastest lap of the race, Jake Burton, was set just after the restart, 108.687. His most recent lap, a 109.976. Marcelo Rivera in behind him, 108.755 was his fastest lap, 109.634. So they've fallen off about 3/4 of a second if we're going to look at probably not our leader, but everyone else basically as they start to try and chase down and zero in on Jake Burton. I think you're right. I think Jake Burton was saving a little bit. We've got some more replays coming in because there's so much action going in. We need to have another look at something.
This is lap 5, the safety car call and the pit entry.
So Jacob O'Reilly on the pit lane entry. He was assessed to be the driver of... I'll take this out of the stewards' actually notes is probably the best way. Was careless driving on the pit lane entry.
And some further notes is that significant damage. Has been a massive dive at the very front of the field by Marcelo Rivera. Gets to the lead of the race off Jake Burton. And now you've got Ethan Grigault tussling with both Maloney and Madison down. Phil Sell to the outside of down to return to. Can't make it work there. He's too wide. And as a result, he's going to be vulnerable to Job Stewart as they climb the hill on this particular occasion. Lap 19 of the race. It's getting pretty interesting here once again. So I think Burton indeed going pretty aggressive on the save, but I think it was Rivera. I saw a very aggressive dive into turn number 1 on this particular lap to take the lead. Yeah, big roll from Jake Burton as there's it on the original Gamer Gear replay. And then similarly in the background, Grigault trying to get up the inside of Maloney and eventually making it stick there by turn 2.
Well, Rivera's just gone, you know what, stuff it. I'm sick of this fuel save business. I'm going to try and tee off down the road and see what I can do and break things up. Because if we do, everything happens as it currently happens. I'm just going to be dive bombed somewhere else if I try and do the fuel saving. And the other thing that I'm thinking of is we're actually going to see some draft breaking now happen between our front 3 as they all weave down the main straight. So it'll be Rivera from Burton from Grigault moving right to left across the track. Drivers right to left across the track as well. And now back to the inside, more overtaking when it's towards the back end of the top 10. And I believe that was actually Rick Kuznetsov and Dylan O'Shea were going side by side. So that was actually for 13th on the road, and Dylan O'Shea is now going to move his way into 13th. And Dylan Rudd, championship leader, the two guys who were first and second in a championship, currently side by side as they run down to the bus stop. Kuznetsov's got the nose ahead. He'll hang on to that one. But Dylan Rudd's starting to feel like he wants to progress his way through the field. And Blake Warboys have got all out of shape as they enter the bus stop that time by. So it is starting to go off again. It's powder keg, calm it down for a couple of laps, and I get the feeling a match is only a few moments away.
Yep, there's the incident where we saw Jake O'Reilly spun around and been told that slow down flag issued to Blake Warboys to do. He's going to try and get this cleared in the next little while. I think he picked it up at the bus stop, and yeah, there goes. All over. Now needs to get that one gone, and it's still not gone yet, so that's going to be painful. There you go. He gets it cleared now, losing, I think, 4, maybe 5 spots yet. Standing around the outside into turn number 1 would be 5th. 5 spots down if it does happen. It's going to be a drag race between those two in turn 2, and Warboy should win out on the inside. Stenny's still there, and now he's got the inside at 3. Will back get the job done? No, he loses out when he gets to the top of the hill. So only 4 lost. But he is now a ways back, and now you've got Robbie Gibbs and Luke Rosella in there, as well as Brady Myers is tumbling down the timing tower.
And Brady Myers had to dip out of the... I just saw him, I think, cut the chicane, so something's going on. He's still going around the outside slowly as it currently stands, and it was a slowdown penalty for him as well. He's still got the slowdown penalty, and the rules are that you can't serve it on the racing line. And Zach Rattray White doesn't know he's got a slowdown, and Rattray White was trying to push him forward because he wants to make places up, still trying to clear this one. And the problem for Brady Myers is the longer this goes on, the longer the slowdown penalty. The driver in behind him, now he finally gets it sorted, is now Blake Warboys. So for Brady Myers, was inside the top 10, now 19th. Now it's going to be Warboys is going to try and slot down the inside, and Robbie Gibbs is going to line up and have a go as well. He tries to pinch him off, cover him. A little bit of turn 1. Gibbs gets tagged. Gibbs gets tagged by Luke Rosella. He manages to straighten it back out. Bedlam in the background. They go 3 wide as they enter the S's on lap 22. They all manage to walk away with it just there's more contact. Gibbs is still trying to recover. He's not in this thing now. He finally gets the car caught up. Now Freeman goes by. He's outside of 30th. Mitchison's next one in the line. Is he going to get on through as well? Yes, he does. No, not quite. Back down to the inside for Robbie Gibbs. Tries to pull the car up. Oh, settle it down, son. We're not even halfway.
And that's how one little tag snowballs there from number 2, Robbie Gibbs. He was into his second tag though from, I think it was Rattray White in 117. As we'll go to an OG gear replay to pick, well, actually not pick that off, because while all of that was happening, back up for the top 5, Jared Filsell finally gets alongside and through Madison down into the bus stop chicane.
Oh, he's not done, by the way. Jared Filsell's trying to pull a move on the front straight right now as we jump back to live pictures. Tried to have a go at Jake Maloney as they run down to turn number 1. And now Maloney is starting to come a little bit under threat. Filsell looks supremely quick in a straight line. That seems to be where all the speed is. Right now, though, our race leader is Marcelo Rivera, and Jake Burton, off of second on the grid, sits in an ERT sandwich. And he is trying to help out Rivera's speed. And Filsell backs out. He's not going to have a go at Maloney this time on the run to the chicane. And the tough thing about this race, Dan Yeaman, is you're right. When you get a little bit out of line, you lose a bunch of spots. But there's so much action everywhere. It's so difficult to pick up who to watch.
It's really a game. Oh, trouble. Exit the chicane. The 07 of Brady Baldwin's in the fence. No. He does get it out, so he does get it out. Thankfully, the second driver to have trouble in this part of the circuit and not be terminally stuck. And also looks like he might have gotten away without being forced into the pit lane for repairs. As the OG gear replay will show us, he's done it by himself. It looks like he didn't even get a tag at all from Robbie Gibbs. That's why how close it was, just a little loose in the middle of that bus stop chicane. And it says Maloney is now indeed about to lose spot for Filsell back live through turn 2. And they touch through the middle of the corner. Maloney's going to get the run as a result up the top, and he shuts the door on Filsell as they get through the top of the hill. Madison down now, coming back.
I just got the feeling, Dan, there was a little bit of a bump on the wall. Down just chills on the throttle pedal, on the loud pedal, just a touch as they run in this time. But that top 6 is all back together again. There's just about nothing in it. And my word, I was sitting there thinking in the back of my mind, Brady Baldwin's not had a great time in this series. Sim Racing's self-proclaimed biggest wobbler in his terms, but he has a big grin from ear to ear every time he goes racing.
Oh, no!
And one of Sim Racing's biggest beards is now Sim Racing's biggest driver in the fence, Brenton Hobson. The troubles tonight have not been good. They've been hardware related, and now they're on track related.
Straight to the OG gear replay will go. There's no mechanical black flag next to his name. So we're going to watch for this here in case something's happened here on downshifts into the chicane. We're thinking maybe something to do with the engine. That angle there doesn't tell us, unfortunately, what's caused it. I can actually no, the engine appears to be running. There's no engine off light on the 88, so maybe something with, again, yeah, hardware, screens, the like. Unfortunately, fouling Hobson. He's still there, and I get the feeling he has to be able to call into race control because here come the leaders at full speed. No caution at this stage. Thankfully, Hobbo is well off the circuit. And yeah, Jordan Ross, I think, is about to call in on behalf of Hobson.
So I'm just listening at the moment. Yeah, so that's what they're talking about. So remember how we were saying there was hardware difficulties? The hard drive he actually had iRacing on corrupted itself today, and he was trying to get everything installed and ready to go. Well, he's got no screens at the moment. He cannot see. There's nothing he can see, so he is going to be forced to call for a tow. He's now one lap down. And they're just talking about it at this point in time. And Jake Burton's gone, well, if there's going to be a safety car, I want the race lead. And he's gone to the point as they head down into turn number 1. This is where the games will start. What was the critical lap number, Dan? Tell me what that critical lap number was, because I think we are on it.
We are in it. Yeah, I can confirm if you're burning flat out, it was 26. For those who have been saving, and they've been saving as early as 23. So we are definitely in the window, but there will be no safety car. The 88 of Hobson has been cleared to get off the track as Brady Baldwin has gotten into into new trouble now, coming out of the pit, and he's engine gone.
Well, I mean, it's still smoking at the moment, so there's definitely still some spark in that engine, but not enough to get him up the hill. And they're going to try and get that one cleared as quickly as they possibly can. This could all explode. If I'm in one of these guys' shoes, do you dive to the lane immediately? We've hit the pit lane window. Who's coming in? No one's coming in at the front end of the train. They're going to wait for the safety car to be called. They're going to fire it off down into turn number 1. They're waiting to have a look at that car, but it's still off the road. Does someone from the rear end of the field pit and just clear that stop? Oh, Green Gold! Green Gold just had a huge slide on the run into turn number 1. He's in a world of trouble. Maloney's gone by. Phil Seldery's inside. Huge slide on the way into turn number 1. It's not done. Phil Sel's going to slot back in. And the safety car's been called down. What was the under over? We said 2. We're on 2.
Yeah, I was thinking we get a couple here. I think, given the fact again that because we aren't forcing the drivers to slow down when a safety car comes out, there is no value in the safety car undercut. As we're going to get this original Game of Gear replay and explain what happened. You can see here, Brady Baldwin and Jacob O'Reilly both coming out of the pits, and I can tell you, Jacob O'Reilly's just hit the back of Brady Baldwin, who was letting everyone go there because it was the lead lap train, and O'Reilly apparently not ready for that kind of courtesy from Baldwin. And that has ended the 07, the night for the 07 machine. Right, second pit stop. We're in the window and expect again, as you said, everyone once again will peel into the pit lane here at the end of lap 27 as they almost touch, if not they actually did.
Well, roll the dice. Who has saved enough fuel? We've got no idea, but these pit stops will tell the story. You can fill this thing and get home from here. This is the second compulsory pit stop of the night. It's already cleared itself now. By the way, I had a quick look in the background. Jacob O'Reilly was on the same lap as Brady Baldwin. They were both one lap down, and they were both obliged to let that train go by. Race control's not going to look too kindly on that.
Yeah, there's a couple of cars that have stayed out. Well, in fact, it's O'Reilly in the 222 and 143 Jordan Ross in the Synergy Sim Racing entry. Going to try and get some laps back here. And we've also had Brenton Hobson drop out and leave. As they're about that, as they get the race off pit road, going to get away now. And the biggest winner of them all from P5 to P1, it was P4 to P1, I think, going to be Jared Philsell to the front.
Oh, we've got a race on our hands, folks. I just saw someone in YouTube land say, I'm out of popcorn. We're only 28 laps in. We haven't hit halfway. He's out of popcorn. I'm out of breath. We've got half a race to go yet. We haven't run 125 clicks at this point in time. We're going to try and grab some interviews. We'll have at least one driver on standby to at least have a very, very quick chat to us at the end of his race with how things have gone. And unfortunately for you, Dan, it is going to be your teammate that is in things. But at the moment, we'll settle things down. We'll give you an update on the race order as it currently stands on that timing tower. So Jared Fuel Cell and had saved the most fuel. Job Stewart jumps to P2. Jake Burton's done a reasonable job and still sits in P3 from Jake Maloney from Madison down. James Scott jumps out of nowhere. He jumps out of absolutely nowhere to sit 6th now. He was at the back end of the top 10. He was 9th on their way in, now sits 6th. So he's recovered a reasonably strong night as well. Greek Galt and Rivera are pushing on quite hard. They've dropped a few spots as a result. 7th and 8th on the road. Griffin Gardner and Rick Kuznetsov, that's your 10 as it currently stands. And Dan, let's go ahead and have a quick old chat with Tyson Broad, who's not had the greatest night at the office.
No, he hasn't. Sorry about that, Tyson. I get the thing. Well, Scott likes to say if I'm in the commentary box and one of you guys are out on track, it's not a good night for you guys. Unfortunately, you were slightly aware things might be a bit of a handful tonight, and it looks like, Gremlins outside your control, it seems to have gotten the better of you.
Yeah, that's WA internet for you. Yeah, obviously not ideal having the same dramas I've known about for definitely the last week. And yeah, it happened once under safety car, and I thought, okay, that might be my joker out the way, because normally it only happens once in a race. But then it happened under green flag, and I'm like, yeah, it's probably not the safest thing for me to be out there with internet issues for other drivers, especially seeing as though that I've only just started my run in this championship, and the others are 5 rounds into it.
Yeah, indeed. That is a good point you make there, of course. And I think, as you said, yeah, you're coming in obviously late to the season, unfortunately, thanks to withdrawals elsewhere. And I guess, yeah, so it means that championship's going to be hard to talk about. But I guess, what does it mean for you to be able to get a chance to try and get out here and get some laps on the board, although cruelly denied here tonight?
Yeah, it's just sort of measuring my pace against this field round by round and seeing whether or not I'm going to improve. I felt as though tonight was going okay, given my relative inexperience in these cars. Hanging sort of around the mid-30s, which is sort of what I expected. And then obviously the internet take it away.
Well, unfortunately, that's going to have to do us there for tonight, Tyson, as the field's about to get back racing here once again. And thanks for having a chat with us, and yeah, fingers crossed we'll have a better thing, or better prospects in the next round of this series.
Thanks, guys.
Well, there we go, Scott. One final OG Gear replay here under yellow for us to have a look at, which is that little brush of the wall you picked up about now 10 or so laps ago, I think it was, for Jared Filsell. Actually, looks like he might have escaped with the skin of his teeth.
Well, you know who he's got it sitting in that chat room talking away with him and giving advice and working with them to work on that setup. It's Shane Van Gisbergen, and Giz is quite good at getting up against walls. Maybe you learned that from them. Maybe it was Jared that actually taught him that trick. We'll never know the end of that story. Maybe that's something to keep in the back pocket one day. But it's going to be a restart here, and we are coming to the conclusion of lap number 29. That is going to leave us with 35 laps in the tank. How much is going to be in the fuel tank? Did Jared Filsell underfill that car to get track position? I don't think he would have. I think he saved that much because you want to go green as hard as you can from here. This is going to be a big, big race from here to the flag, if it's going to be from here to the flag. And Filsell's got control of the field. It's gone. Here goes Jared. So he's launched it nice and early off that last corner. And now cutting his way through the front of things as well in terms of the fuel strategy. It's going to be Joe Stewart who follows him, and Jake Burton sits in third. Who is going to have the opportunity when we get to the flag tonight? Who sits on the podium? Who is going to make a win in this thing? Who will pick up a bank of points, and who's going to fall by the wayside? Because the fuel games, they're all finished.
The thing is, I wouldn't say they're finished. I'll have to finish crunching numbers for you here in a little bit, but by saving fuel and taking less fuel, so far in this race, drivers like Jared Philsell, they might have to owe that back to drivers who have taken more to be able to commit flat out, and that will probably crush this group together. Possibly, yeah, being told also keep in mind the weather. It looks like it's on its way down still in terms of track temperature. Yeah, it's a little dip there, which I wonder if that was qualifying early in the race, but now it's slowly starting to come on down. There we go, grid goal on James Scott. He's trying to get straight back into it here, and they will almost brush on the exit of the penultimate turn, and then a second brush in the final turn as the number 7 tries to hold up the 088 on the way in.
And what this has done is it's just about broken the toe to the pack up ahead. In fact, I think it has broken the toe. At the moment, James Scott is going to go very defensive on the run down to turn number 1, and he has to. Needs to hang on to that spot as it currently stands. Doesn't get good drive, though. And now it's going to be Greek Gold, who's just about tapping out a little bit of music on the rear bumper of James Scott's Commodore. And it's ERT versus Lobs Esports, two of the bigger teams in terms of the last few years, in terms of the drivers and their pace. And now they're going to go toe-to-toe out on the road. How good is that wall shot on the run up the S's? How good is this racetrack?
It certainly is a excellent bit of racetrack, that is for sure. You don't count this place out. It's fast and frantic version of the circuit here. As there has been an update from race control. Trying to see if we can get it in the chat here. Not yet though, but the answer being no further action on the incident with Ray Ball and Jago at the second safety car. Baldwin by letting off apparently is at fault, which is an interesting thought. I guess, yeah, if you're not at speed, it's something that catches the driver up. At the same time, as you said, so they're the idea. Common courtesy concept there, perhaps, trying to make sure he didn't get in the way of the drivers there, the pack will leave that, but nevertheless, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, look, I mean, if you know he's not maintaining speed, which yeah, he definitely didn't maintain speed. That was the one thing I didn't factor into my calculations. That's a fair enough call as well. We'll move a little bit further forward down the road. I can tell you that Ethan Greek Gold did manage to get by James Scott, and now he's got a job to do. Can he catch the pack up ahead? Is there still some fuel games going on? Because if there is, he's got an opportunity. As it stands, though, it's about 1.5 seconds from Ethan Greek Gold back to Madison Downs. So actually, just out of 2 seconds. So he is getting no draft support at this point in time. And James Scott's got a decision to make. Do I work with him and try and push us back up to that lead group? Or do I fight him? Because if he fights, he's only ever going to finish 6th at best tonight.
Yeah, I get the feeling surely the game here will just be push along, work together, reform the group. There's no value in fighting this early. Not when we're just getting the second half of this race underway and the gap is maybe a second or so, as we bring up here. This is Dylan Rudd, though, is currently caught up in a battle there with one of our cars, pardon me. It
was Rattray White.
Rattray White, thank you for that. And Adam Briggs trying to get in on the party as a result. Although it will be 117 or number 17, sorry, that does lose out in the process.
Oh, side by side on the run down to the chicane. Kuznetsov was blocking O'Shea. Did not want Dylan O'Shea ahead of him. He wants to stay as close to Griffin Gardner as he possibly can. He is getting points back, by the way, on Dylan Rudd as it currently stands in terms of those championship standings. So that's why Dylan Rudd's trying to get a little bit aggressive and see if he can skip down the road. But in the meantime, Gilliam sits in 12th position. That's the rear bumper of Job Stewart's car as seen by Jake Burton's on board. And I wonder how aggressive Jake Burton's currently going. How much in the pot in terms of fuel saving? Because remember, he's led so much of this race thus far. He would have the most fuel of a lot of them to save.
Yeah, that is true. So there we go, Burton to the inside on Stewart at turn 1. Pretty much done by the apex and will be completely done by the exit. That will sort out and allows these guys to stay somewhat together, as you've got James Scott and Rivera there going side by side further on back. They get back in line as they come up the hill once again. And that little fight for second has also done the same thing. Opened up and breathed up for Jared Philsell. There's headlight flashing there in the background from O'Shea. Watch these guys pile on in once again. It's kind of interesting here, this second stint. While we've got packed, it's not this one unbroken chain, which is like obviously we saw it got pretty crazy there, Scott, in the opening half of this race after about, 10 or so laps. People wouldn't start really making some moves. But here it feels like the moves are being made straight away as there go Rivera again, the inside of Scott, but can't get there. Griffin Gardner going to get stacked up behind him as a result.
Yeah, and this is just allowing Ethan Griggold to start to step away, and we'll get some updates as they come by the start-finish line on the margins as well. What I'm looking for is the margins of the car ahead. Ethan Griggold's 2.5 seconds from the leader, and he's got James Scott just over a second behind him, so he's out of that tow range is now James Scott. And Marcelo Rivera, and all of a sudden, up at the pointy end of thing, car's losing ground as well. Job Stewart's just lost a spot to Jake Maloney. How about Jake Burton has resurged straight onto the rear bumper of Jared Fuelcell, as his name in my head nearly gets replaced with Jared Fuelcell.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that.
Job Stewart lost a ton of ground at turn 1, and Jake Maloney got down the inside, got to P3. Remember how you said that Dylan O'Shea was flashing some headlights?
Reasonably tame looking pass there from Andrew Gilliam, I'd say, and keeps Kuznetsov and Gilliam together in the Gilliam Esports duo, so not surprising that it was done. Nevertheless, they will have to carry on racing there, and O'Shea will have to try again. I mean, it does get him further away from Griffin Gardner, and he can't assist 9.5 teammate as Madison down a lunge and a half on the anchors into the first turn, but I think on this occasion, has to get pulled up and can't clear Joe Stewart this time, who will then just get back in front, swinging around into turn 2, and now has to try and get a run up to get away from the number 1 machine. Does have the space to do so now. There's a gap to Maloney in front. Question is how much time can he afford here? Expect most of the time. There you go, Scott and Rivera in the background. Side by side, not quite though, as they make it into the bus stop, but again, just more of that forcing it as a defensive line. It's going to slow down the lap time for the 088, give Griggold breathing margin, as back at the front of the field, they've caught up to Phil Sell once again.
Yeah, they have, and I was just keeping half an eye on, by the way, Ethan Griggold pulled himself back in, 0.3 of a second on that last lap. He's now within a second, so he's getting tow again. So he's surged all the way back up. Now the next one that we're looking for is James Scott. What does he do? Because at 1.6 seconds behind Ethan Griggold, that's very, very important. If Griggold gets to this next pack and stalls out a little bit, and James Scott can keep making margin, well, James Scott might actually have good tyres when he gets there.
As I said, it's going to be another important factor too. Decent temperatures, as we said. Left side, you work them harder here. You need to have decent left front on you. But when you get through turn 1, carousel on the front turn, so you need to make sure you have that underneath you here as this race ticks on. Especially now, basically, they're all pretty much committing to a 38-lap stint here, ideally without stopping again, to keep it all in perspective. Now, of course, there was a lap there or 2 under safety car, so it's more like 36 actual racing laps, but still over half the race distance tonight on the single turn tyre spot. And the track temperature is still hanging around 44 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, it's dipped, but then it's sort of maintained since we've got there, and Marcelo Rivera's caught up once again to James Scott, just sitting casually by. We keep our eyes on these two sorts of margins. Oh, and keep in the back of your mind as well, as we cross the start-finish line this time by, there's still 27 laps left to go in this race. There is a hectic amount of time. We are still at 25 to go. We'll be right on 100 kilometres left in this race, so anything could happen. And if this goes green to the end, which, well, the other thing about fuel games is it packs everyone back up, doesn't it? So once you get spread out and everyone's sort of not racing each other quite as hard door to door, all of a sudden the safety car chance drops off quite significantly. So anything theoretically, we may go green to the end here just based upon that little bit of a statement there, Dan.
Well, it's all up to these drivers here as to how they want to race and how desperate they are to either reform the gaps or to go after each and every single spot tonight, and how much of a risk they're willing to take out there. We've had a couple of ones that end up just, of course, tripping up in incidents in the safety cars. So that will be indeed as we now have this lovely split view here to watch our top 6, and then the battle for 7th on back still forming up behind James Scott.
might be worthwhile having a little bit of a check-in as to who's gained the most spots tonight. Dylan O'Shea started out at 20th, has clawed his way up to 12th, so he's gained 8 spots. So that's quite reasonable. We're looking at another one, by the way, which is Luke Rosella. Remember, started from the rear end of the field. He's gained 21 spots. And Thomas Freeman up 16 as well. Although, it'd be interesting to see what they do with Luke Rosella. He may not necessarily be eligible for the OG Hard Charger starting from pit lane. That'll be an interesting one to debate the semantics of. But Damien Johnson's having a reasonable night. James Scott as well. So tonight from the Lobs Esports crew, no qualifying pace, but they've got the race pace. They've got the ability to charge their way up through the field. And Josh Anderson, in the meantime, in the background as well, in 17th spot, was having to make sure he defended from Blake Warboys. I get the feeling there's all those please and thank yous we've seen thus far throughout the race with all the fuel saving. That's all done.
Yeah, I would think so. So we'll see here how the drivers make it work for them. I mean, yeah, look, some of these drivers, we think some of these drivers are going to be a little short on fuel. And I really suspect that's why Jared Wilson has been caught back up without too much of a fight. He's now going to ride this front of the group back, or say hold everyone back, manage the fuel, and allow his teammates stuck a little further back to be able to get in on this one here at this stage.
Who was it during the interviews, by the way, Dan, that said, I think this thing will be decided in the last 10 laps of the race?
Both at the front row.
Both of them.
Yeah, do keep that in mind. So, yeah, all these guys here at the front, they know that this more than any other race, it seems, apart from maybe the Enduros, because of the fact they are just such long races, this one being such a bull ring as you've described it, you've got to really just be patient. Wait it out even more than you normally would, and just give yourself every single possible chance to make your gains at the end of the race.
I think it's really, really interesting when you have a look at Job Stewart, the amount of track that he was using right now. That says something not 100% at the front end of that car, and he's just scrapping pace out of it. The driver out of Super 2. He's making it work for him. It's been a little while between pacey stints for Job Stewart in the 35 machine. Didn't have the greatest round all the way back at Sebring. I think he was actually pinged post-race for track limits breaches as well. And then you come to Watkins Glen. Well, track limits don't mean all that much at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, that is very true there.
Might do a little bit of an update as well on the championship standings down. And look, I mean, I know that you're only here tonight. We thank you for filling in, but I really want your thoughts on this championship battle and how it's shaping up, because I don't get to ask that of somebody that's stepping in. I want a fresh look in. I want a little bit of a fresh thought that's going to be pumped through my head here.
Interesting point that you ask. I mean, look, for me, obviously, the big thing is that this season, with the way the chaos and the carnage of our big one at Sebring to start the season off. Of course, that was the thing that really threw everything from such a massive pivot. We are now starting to slowly get to the point where you could say the order based on the pace otherwise seen this season demonstrate starting to show now as we get about halfway here in the season, of course. But we're going to feel those effects for another round or two in the season. The Jared himself has been really strong. Now, in saying that, he moves up to the position of P3 at this time. And he's only 24 points off the lead of the championship. So, odds are, if things stay as they are, roughly speaking now, give it the next round in, and he'll be right up then as his race results since round one would indicate where he's sort of had a pace, including everything up until that incident in Sebring, has been. So it's one of the more dramatic starts we've seen to the Pro Invitational since the series has come into its inception, and the natural order is still having to be worked out here. But nevertheless, we are seeing some good racing, and it's a good chance for drivers to have made a bit of an outlier. It might be drivers that potentially might have been close to the cut line at 20, be a little more solid. As things stand. Have a look at here, points and what they're gaining tonight so far for the drivers in and around the top list.
Yeah, and that is the battle for the bubble. Remember, top 20 get an automatic ticket back next year as the battle starts to heat up at the front end of the race. Sean McNamara would be in just from Hayden Veld, would slip just on the outside. So something to keep in the back of your mind. And Bo Albert, think about the difficult chance to try and qualify. Dylan O'Shea's on the outer looking in there as well. Imagine if Dylan had to go back through the qualifying series. That automatic ticket in this year, I think, is really giving him an opportunity to work on things. And by the way, all that hullabaloo that we were having about, 5-10 laps ago about will James Scott make it back into this draft pack? Yep, he's here. He's back inside. He's picking up that draft once again. So another stage, another stanza of this race gets written. We had all the action of the early race. Now it settles. This middle point of the race just draws on and draws on and draws on. And we're going to have 21 more laps left to run. Oh, and by the way, the battle graphic, it's immense. There's 21 cars in it.
As has been told, just for you apparently, and yeah, that chat that rings a bell, and yeah, the fact that it can go bigger, and I guess if you really want to play around with it, you should consider a technical demonstration in name only, and let it go on for the screens as soon as it appeared. As we'll focus back on the action here on the circuit. And curious to see here, there's a bit of a margin growing between Jake Burton and Joe Stewart in second place. As being told, listen in to Jared Philsell's number 94 machine, still looking to save some fuel. And why am I not surprised with the driver who had the shortest second stop of everyone in the top 15 when they restarted, mind you. Also positions are very much moving around at this stage.
Yeah, and have a look at the guy that's sitting in behind him as well. And Jake Burton's got an interesting brain about these sorts of things. And just the way that he is psychologically, whenever I talk to him, I get the feeling that at this point he'd know exactly that Jared's in a fuel hole. And he would have been watching the attitude of that car for the last couple of laps. And he would be sitting here and going, you know what? Stuff him. If he's going to short fill, I'm not going to let him tow. I'm going to make him do all the work. That is just how Jake Burton's mind works.
Oh, I mean, it's going to be what any of these drivers do. I think also to be fair, if they cotton on, and they will cotton on, they will have. I should say, at this point, it's going to be well clear, as you said. At this point in the race, they will push Jared as hard as they can to try and get him to be a little tight on fuel. Now, curiously, I've actually just run some numbers on.
Ooh, here we go. I like numbers. Give me some numbers, Dan.
The interesting thing here that I'm seeing is that Philsell, even with an increase, I've actually had to try and increase the fuel burn from the low side estimate we gave earlier tonight to try and make this seem a little more marginal. Even if Philsell's burning 2.75 litres a lap and has been burning that every single lap of the race, he's still got 64 laps of fuel. And he had enough to get to end of lap 64. So what that says to me is, now maybe I need to increase the average burn so you can account for the laps where he's been pushing a little harder. I think I might even want to do that and just see if it ticks under. It does tick under, so yeah, that's going to be interesting here. Let's see if I'll share it to you in a second. You can have a read of it, how the numbers are going to play out. A couple of drivers, if their average burn is more like 2.8 litres a lap for the entire race, a little possibly in trouble. But so far, so good, it seems.
Interesting to note as well who the first drivers are that are outside of that first train. So Kurt Stenberg's the last driver effectively in the lead train, and he sits in 21st. Scott Gamble sits 22nd on the road, and he's then the leader of this second train of cars. But these guys are not attached to that lead group. Think about things we talked earlier on in the night when we saw a couple of slowdowns starting to come through for drivers who cut their way through the bus stop chicane, didn't quite necessarily take the right racing line, got penalised with that one. They dropped a fair way back, 4 or 5 spots in terms of things. Well, now if you're Scott Gamble, if you can just eke your way back up and back onto the back end of that train, and the sector times have not been good to him, by the way. He's lost a little bit of margin to Kurt Stenberg, and now Thomas Freeman's going to have a go at him. And prior to last round at Varef, these two would have been teammates, no more. Thomas Freeman's out, and he is a privateer, and he gets the front end of this one. And have a look at Forza Nabi. After a pit lane start, has cut his way through to 24th. He wants 23rd on the road. And I think he feels there might be somewhere to go and make contact with Scott Gamble. He's made contact with the wall as well.
He's rejoined.
That'll be a safety car. There's no way these guys get through. The engine's blown in Forza Nami's car. The engine's blown in his night, and they're gonna continue to pile in here. O'Reilly's involved. Serrano's involved. Brady Myers is going to be the next car on road that comes through, but there are 3 cars in the S's whose nights are over.
Oh, dear me. Brendan Hobson's is one of them. And at this point, they'll get through cleanly. And, yeah, O'Reilly actually towed immediately, which that might even see him flag down.
He'll get a penalty next round for sure. But who takes tyres now? Who actually pit stops? Because if there's cars that are just at the back end of this thing, safety car will be called here in a few moments.
Turn 1 trouble.
Now there's going to be trouble at turn 1 as well. Who managed to get through? Oh, it's going to be Ethan Greco and Madison Down, who are shuffling their way through. And now it's going to be called to the drivers that there is an incident through the S's. They need to be careful. And they're going to see the stricken cars all over the racetrack. They're still going toe-to-toe. And I think Greek Gold and Madison Down were trying to sort that one out on the road so that they've got that one all sorted. Serrano's still trying to go through. Safety car's finally called, so the field will get frozen. Oh, they waited a touch too long for me there, Dan. Oh, I was worried there for a moment because the cars were stricken in the S's. I was just a little bit concerned with the cars arriving at speed that could have caused more drama. All right, and, well, we might see some pit stops because that safety car's been called. Who's going to dive to the lane? And I've got an update for you. Dan Yeaman, unfortunately, steps out of the commentary box for a few moments. He's just had dramas as well. So he's just missed all of this. We've waited 48 laps for the powder keg to go off. And on lap 48, it blows off. Now Stenberg's into the lane. Freeman's going to follow him in as well. There's going to be a ton of drivers at the tail end of the field. The guys that were in a fuel hole at the front have had that removed. Who are the takers? It's Stenberg, it's Ford, and it's Michael Whiting and Thomas Freeman are the 4. And there was a redress between Madison Down and Ethan Greek Gulp, but it's going to be confirmed. It's been handed to race control. So this is the dive down the inside. This is what triggered it all. And it was just lucky that we flicked to this group. And Forza Nami gets to the inside of Scott Campbell, tries to get the job done at turn 1. They get to turn 2, and there was space, and El Nabi just comes off the racing line at turn 2, trips over the back end, but I think his left front tyre's already broken off the car at that point in time. And Serrano's got nowhere to go. El Nabi's engine's already done. His wheels are ripped off, and everyone else just arrives at speed, at absolute speed. Fastest, blindest section of the track. There is no visibility. And for some of the drivers down the tail end of the field, we might have a look at them as well after we see this one, because this is what changed things at the front end of the field. Madison Down and Ethan Greek Gulp on the run down to turn number 1. Greek Gulp gets to the inside. There's contact. There was actually a little bit of a snap of oversteer from Madison Down, but the stewards have been asked to have a look at that one. I don't know if there'll be a huge amount looked at, but they will be looking at that one. I don't see that there's going to be too much in that. And I said it just recently. I said there might have been another safety car in the works, and indeed there was another safety car in the works. Final 10 laps to resolve this one. And Dan Yeaman finally gets back into the commentary box. Dan Yeaman, your internet went out at exactly the worst possible moment.
Yeah, you're telling me, Scott. Where something blipped by like a local power station, just half went offline. So that's what knocked me out a little bit there. Thankfully, I'm back up and running, and it was an annoying brownout moment. So, well, I can see we're on the safety car. Can you tell me, though, did anyone come to the pits?
We do have some takers. The takers are Thomas Freeman, Ian Ford, there was somebody else. Kurt Stenberg was in, and there was one more car at the tail end of the field. So there was 4 cars that took it. Michael Whiting was the 4th. Brian Borg actually came in as well at the tail end of the field, as is Brady Myers, and Andre Youssef has also come to the lane now as well. So there was a few more cars than we initially saw. A few of them were not necessarily in sync, and Jordan Ross is going to come to the lane as well. So update on the cars of the pit. 47, Stenberg. 115's Ian Ford. 49 will be Thomas Freeman. The 951 should be, I believe, Sean McNamara. 025 is Michael Whiting. 017's Brian Borg. 22 is Brady Myers. 900 will be Yusuf, Andre Yusuf, and the triple one will be Teo Sorono, I believe, as well. And we're going to get an onboard, and Dan, sit back and watch this, because he arrives at speed and there are cars parked across one of the blindest points of this circuit. You can just see it. Forza El Nabi's in the barrier there, and there is nowhere to go for Jacob O'Reilly.
Yeah, he's not able to slot the gap. Well, in saying that, for Matt Bowler that we were following there, I don't really think he got away with that by the looks of things. So he clipped the rear of Forza El Nabi's car. So absolute bedlam there. And that was separate to what I was calling as I was watching the race, which was, yeah, not trouble, but a little bit of drama at turn one. There's, I think, with people realizing there was multiple cars parked out. Well, for Madison Down, he tried a lunge on Ethan Grigol, and at turn one, as a result, he bombed it. He did throw it in so hard, though, that it tripped him up. As we're going to go back and have a look here at Forza El Nabi. So he's alongside, Scott Gamble, and unfortunately, as we come up into turn two, Scott, as you were calling it here, they just don't quite
under the tree.
Get through. Just don't quite get through there. But then the angle means into part of it. Sorono, was it? Robbie Gibbs gets clipped, and then there's a car's width there. And
as half a car's width, the track was effectively blocked. Anyway, we are moments away from going back to green flag racing. The safety car is in pit lane. Jared Filsell has got the lead of this race, and there will be no more fuel saving from here. They have absolutely got enough fuel. So everything that was in the notebook tonight, take it out. I said there might have been 2 safety cars. You said there might have been 2 safety cars. We've had 3. Will there be a 4th? For Jared Filsell gets to the final corner. He's going to get this restart underway, and he will hold them, launch it. He's out of here. He's going to try and run away. Who's going to have a go in the background? An 088 of James Scott has got Marcelo Rivera. He blocks him all the way to the inside barrier, and now he's going to open the corner back up. Rivera breaks it down onto the inside, doesn't quite manage to keep the car down there. James Scott trying to go through, has managed to go ahead and grab that spot back. So he slots back in a 5th spot. And now he's looking real pretty as James Scott, because he did not get qualifying right. Does not matter. They pay the points at the end of lap 64, 16th on the grid. He's in a 5th.
Yeah, it's just an unexpectedly bad qualifying number. The 088. Funny enough, there was on that restart, he tried to jump it a little bit in terms of working with Phil Sol, perhaps, in terms of communication as to when Jared was going to go, and then got caught up with him behind. Pardon me, he was in front of him at that restart. And so Rivera, a little bit back, is able to see.
Oh, here we go. To the inside. Madison Downs just dived it down to the inside of the 93 machine of Griffin Gardner. So they're going to go side by side on the run of the final corner. And when we've got 14 more laps left to go, there's no fuel saving required, and we've got to keep half an eye on who's at the tail end of the field, who's going to have a go on those fresher tyres, because we've got a number of those drivers. It was Freeman, it was Whiting, it was Borg, there was a number of the drivers back there. Kurt Stenberg was the furthest through that pack. Stenberg to the centre down the inside of Luke Mitchinson. He picks up a spot. He's back to 23rd. He pit out of 21st, so he's only 2 spots down on where he pit out of, and now we'll keep an eye back up towards the front end of town, because this thing, we've sat on a powder keg all night. It's been a couple of sparks. It's gone off a couple of times. The racing is not done from the bullring round of the season.
Once again, a leading pack is breaking away. In fact, the top 15 by the looks of things there. We've got Anderson leading the next train of cars. Already starting to fracture. You can even say at Madison Down, there's a bit of a gap. So the top 6, then 7th through 15th, and then 16th on back. At this stage, for those drivers there in the back half of the 10 and just outside, they're going to surely need to be willing to work together, trying to have a chance at things further up the order. And indeed, the drivers there who were a little tight on fuel before the safety car, yeah, forget about it, they're good. They'll be happy with it. Mainly, I didn't get a chance to share it with you. In fact, I wanted, for the sake of the discussion, I'll share it with you, Scott, and so you can have a read of this. The big one was that according to the numbers, Jared Filsell could have maybe been a lap short.
Oh, well, he's not anymore. And that's the critical factor. He was thinking there's probably going to be another safety car. I want track position. And now he's got everything he wanted. Christmas came a little bit early for Jared Filsell. What has Jake Burton got him? Is he just going to shadow? Is he just going to follow along? When does he pull the trigger? Joe Stewart's back to 3rd spot as well. And he starts to close in. And do those exploits in the real world, does a life of racing really start to add onto the experience counter? Job Stewart will tell you, yeah, absolutely it does. But sim racing is just another thing entirely. He's got an opportunity tonight to put one foot on the podium. Can he make sure that he does that? Can it be the top step of the podium? Because this one is not decided. At the start-finish line, we are going to have 11 more laps left to run. We are going to have about 43 kilometres left in this motor race here, Dan, and there is everything to gamble for.
You need to obviously make sure, though, that you finish this race. There's no good in going for something early or even going for something at the end if it means you end up in a world hurt, as we are seeing Sylvan messages from race control here. And first up is Forsen on Navi. Drive-through penalty for him, although being in the pits probably won't do a whole lot at this stage for that incident Scott Gamble. But critically, the one that is now on the screen, 5-second post-race penalty. Madison down for contact with Ethan Grid-Gold on lap 48, right before the safety car was called. As we saw there way in the background, Thomas Freeman almost up against the barrier, fighting for a spot towards the back of the field, I think it was. Is that what you spotted, Scott?
Ian Ford, Thomas Freeman and Sean McNamara were just about 3 wide on the run down in the bus stop. Kurt Stenberg on those fresh tyres. Well, he hit out of 21st spot. He's back to 21st right now. He has got the freshest tyres by a long shot over everyone that he's in around. He could make hay. He's not going to crack the top 10, I don't think. I think he's going to run out of time, but he could advance himself 6 or 7 spots from here. It's all gain from now for Kurt Stenberg. But the key factor that you were talking about, 5-second time penalty. Car number 1 for contact with car number 7 on lap 48, turn 1. Madison down, 5-second penalty.
Yeah, it was big send. I think he tried giving the spot back, but there was a slowdown inflicted on Grid-Gold. It has now got Henry Gilliam trying to apparently even up the dents on that Brilliant Esports front bumper, but Grid-Gold's going to roll out of it there, looks like a little bit, and nope, my apologies, the angle misled me for a second. He will most definitely stay in front there. It's going to go to one more OG Gear replay. Well, I say one more, it's not likely to be, this is what, I saw it for a moment whilst we were worrying about, 3 cars, piled up at turn 2 in the S's. Madison just trying to get any extra spot he can. It's no good because there you go. James Scott gets a spot, 2 spots for free. And so will Rivera, so will Gardner, and then does try and let it go. As a result, checks up a Gilliam there, I think it is, in the process. And then, slowdown's still here. They just sleek between El Nabi and Hobson there.
That was risky too. I do wonder, there is a slowdown penalty. For those of you who are wondering what Dan's referring to, you've got to get back across the curbs by a certain point on this track, or there is a slowdown penalty. And I thought that Ethan Grid-Gold had cleared that. Yeah, so it was actually the 2 stricken cars on the track that forced the checkup. There was no slowdown penalty from what I know. But Kurt Stenberg was on the move as it currently stands. He's now up to 20th. So this has worked out to the tune of 1 spot right now, and everything he gains from here is a win. We're under 10 laps left to go. Jake Burton, Ethan Grid-Gold both said it's going to be decided in the last 10 laps of the race. The problem is who has the tyre underneath them to make the move. And by the way, keep our minds on inside the top 20 from about 12th all the way back to 17th. The cars are nose to tail. There is nothing between them. You thought this was close up the front. The guys back there are even closer.
There's been some kind of scuffle at the back of the field heading in and around the bus stop, including a few cars like Tom Freeman. I'm just going to try and see if I can figure out. Well, it also involved Brian Borg, I think. Yeah, either some kind of maybe a slowdown or something, perhaps for Thomas Freeman. They check up big time. It is right towards the back of the field, all it was. No one seems to have gotten. Oh, there was a bit of a touch between Freeman and Borg on the exit of the carousel. On that
I'm sure we'll get an OG Game of Yuga replay to tell the story. And indeed, it's been called into race control, so there was absolutely some contact of some description at the tail end of the field. And for a number of drivers right now, Luke Rosella's at the back end of the top 20. Remember, Luke Rosella from the Red Bull Ring had to start the pit lane this time this round because of all the incidents he had. He's had another one there. There's also another update that's just crawled onto my screen. It was for Josh Anderson. It was an overtake under the safety car. So something went on there. So this is the Gamer Gear replay for the contact of the rear bumper of Freeman. And then it was the turn back in because he was trying to get back into that slot where Borg was, and Borg was already there filling that vacant spot. And I do wonder whether that we'd need to keep half an eye on. But yeah, there was a overtaking under the safety car, which means that Josh Anderson has got himself a drive-through penalty. So that's going to change his running spot, and he currently sits 16th on the road. So for everyone behind him, another freebie.
Yeah, it's actually annoying because I can't go back and see exactly how that happened there because unfortunately, so out of the session. So I'll have to get someone to tell me how many spots he gained and everything like that. But 4 spots, I'm being told. Oh dear, that's not just a small issue. That's a big mistake there. So get through everyone there, and I've been told it'll be very obvious when safety car is called. Yeah, maybe now everyone's on the anchors. Oh, hello, Sorono there, I think it was, trying to get through and get us on track, and everyone's cruising at this point. So yeah, definitely under safety car at this point. So, and we're being told, yeah. So trying to get back to where he was, it seems. Yeah, he's gone off the road on his own volition. Mistake at the bus stop.
But you can't do that without being told to do that, and that's what the race controller are not happy about, because its safety car positions field is effectively frozen. You'll get it back eventually when they get the opportunity to, but they have to assess that before you're allowed to do that. So that will be what that one's all about. But in the meantime, up at the pointy end of town, there's just small margins between a number of cars. Then you get back to Griffin Gardner. He's just outside of that draft window now for Griffin Gardner in an 8th spot. And Ethan Greek-Galt sits 9th. And he's now out of the draft range as well. Dylan O'Shea's made his way inside the top 10. O'Shea, in the community, known as a Malayan driver. He's aggressive. He'll get out. He'll block. He'll dive bomb. He's not afraid to trade pain. Sometimes it doesn't work. I think back to Sandown last year. He finished on the podium, and then all of a sudden it was a safety car procedure infringement that unfortunately robbed him of that one. So it worked back then. For the driver of 9.5 Sim Sports, he's made his way back inside the top 10 as we look a little bit further down the road as well.
Staying out. He's probably got at least, well, he has to either come in this lap or the end of the next one, I would think. Before that penalty becomes a disqualification from the race results automatically. So we need to get that one sorted out promptly as, in all of the chaos, all of the madness, the laps tick away. We're on lap 60. It's 5 to go, or less than now. We're our leading field here, Scott, as they enter that inner loop chicane once more. We'll see if anyone's going through at this stage. Not yet. We're going to see if Kurt Stenberg is going to have a run perhaps further on back with those tyres, as you said.
Just doing some math on where Madison Downs sits right now, and if he was to grab a 5-second penalty as it stands, that'd drop him to 15th. He'd lose 8 spots. 8 spots from a 5-second penalty right now, but this race necessarily isn't over. At the front of the town, they're all sort of still nose to tail. Not much you can really do up there.
Ultimate corner.
Contact as everyone's still squabbling, and Hayden Bell's traded a little bit of pain, as is Bo Albert, and Blake Warboys is getting involved as well. And it was because Kurt Stenberg got that fresh set of tyres on. He is cutting his way through the field. He is now up to 17th point position as it currently stands. And I think that we finally saw Anderson sidestep out of the train and serve his drive-through penalty. So that one is now served. And Luke Rosella will be the next car on the warpath for Kurt Stenberg. But we look back towards the front end of the field and we keep our eyes on this one, because this race is going to be decided inside the last 10 laps. This race is going to be decided inside the last 4 laps. There's now 3.5 laps left to run, and we are on our way back. When we get to the next corner, there's going to be about 10 kilometres left in this race, and time is running out. Jake Burton has led this race. He was on the front row, and he's just played shadow to Jared Filsell in the second half of this race. But could there be one more sting in the tail?
Maybe. There's a bit of a headlight flash from Jake Burton. I'm seeing further on back. Contact actually between Brady Myers and Scott Gamble. This is way down in 22nd place between those cars. It's going to see the 543 lose a spot to Myers. Damien Johnson gets a run and gets a spot out of it. Is further up, if you can see, they've got side by side. There's Mitchelson now inside of Gamble. Should have that spot done on the exit, and Ryan Moore going to get the opportunity to have an eye in as well into the S's. Coming up the hill, doesn't quite hold the tight line, but can't get past. Gamble will slot back in front as Stenberg and Rosella, I can say. So this is the 16th place now. So Stenny continuing to make places. The last little bit was more from other people making mistakes and him getting a free path through as Org and Gamble side by side have ended up with Gamble slow off the road through the inner loop chicane and a slowdown penalty to boot as we're coming to 2 laps to go.
And Gamble's not happy about it, so he's picked up that slowdown penalty, so that's going to be for the stewards to look at, but this time is running out. That one's probably going to be reviewed post-race now before they can get that one in time. 2 more laps left to run. The track length, 3.94 kilometres. That equates to about, what have we got, 6.88 kilometres left to run, and as I say 6.88, it's probably more about 6.3. As they run up to the bus stop chicane through the S's. There will be one more trip through this section of road. Jake Burton is starting to get closer to Jared Filsell, but has he left the run a little bit too late? Is he going to have a crack on the last lap when Filsell can't necessarily respond? One more time through the bus stop chicane. The cars clamber all over the curbs. They're going for everything. Nothing left on the table, and there is trouble at the back end of the field, by the way. There's a couple cars crawling out of the S's.
Rick Golt's out! Rick Golt's out!
Ethan Green Gold has not had a night to remember. He picked up pole position, and now he won't see the checkered flag. It's going to be looked at. It's going to be looked at. It's going to be talked about. But all that people are going to remember right now is the next 3.94 kilometres. White flag in the air. One more lap left to run. Can Jake Burton spoil the Jared Filsell party, or is it going to be another Loves Esports victory?
So Britt Galt's off the road. Scott Gamble's also parked up. He's just outside the white lines on the right-hand side. So offline under brakes into the bus stop chicane. But here we go up the hill. Final time. 3/10 back at pack there according to the timing. I don't think Burton's lined that one up right. Well, here we go. Towards the top of the hill. It's Phil Sell backing up to give himself the fuel for the last run in here. To come through the inner chicane.
Bus stop chicane in through the inner loop. Now it's onto the outer loop. They're going to have 2 more corners on the exit here, and Jake Burton is just a little bit too far back. The 94 machine was supreme last time out at Haraf. He's going to make it 2 race wins in a row, you think. It's not quite done. 2 more corners. They're running out of time. Jake Burton squeezes in, gets closer, but he's too far back. And for Jared Filsell, didn't qualify well here tonight. Does not matter. Puts another ticket into the victory box. And for Jared Filsell, he hunts down a championship lead. He gets close. Jake Burton's home in 2nd. It's going to be Stewart home in 3rd. Maloney in 4th. James Scott 5th. With a phenomenal drive back to 5th place. Marcelo Rivera home in 6th. Madison Down finishes 7th on the road. But now we wait. How far does he fall with the penalty? He'll fall to about 12th place, which is just in behind Dylan Rudd, who'll move up to 11th spot. But Jared Filsell took a risky gamble at that second to last safety car. He took a little bit less fuel than everyone else, and he got track position, and track position was all that mattered.
Well, props to Jared there for making that strategy work. And sure, the safety cars might have helped a little bit there in getting him what he needed, but nevertheless, get to the front, control the field, and be in the spot that allows him to make sure that he's across the line in the first place. Yeah, that last 2 laps, or the penultimate lap, absolute chaos further on back. And also the fact that message from race control went through in game. Brendan Hobson actually went out on circuit again after being cleared off the circuit from the big one that brought out safety car number 3. And as a result, he has been disqualified from the race results here tonight. So that will send him tumbling down the classification behind everyone who has finished here tonight.
Well, keeping half an eye on him. He did have some fuel left to save, but safety cars will allow you to save a little bit of that gas. He's cough spluttered and just barely got home, as racing car drivers tend to do. You only need enough fuel to cross the start-finish line. After that, not necessarily all that's needed in sim racing. You might need a fuel sample if you're a real-world driver, but for Jared Philsell, you get to celebrate just a little bit here tonight, I think. And yep, the celebrations are starting for the driver of the 94. He's going to go back-to-back. Wins it at Jerez, wins it here. And that is a man, Dan, that is absolutely on top of the sim racing world at the moment. His pace this year feels like a step up from where he was last year. It feels like last year, and everything that transpired served as a little bit of motivation for the Speed Cafe Logs Esports team.
I'd have to agree there, Scott. When it comes to this car, short of issues and errors and stuff, whether it not necessarily even be his, but just incidents that gets caught up in, doesn't seem to be anything that can stop Jared when he gets behind the wheel of that number 94 machine. And even here amongst the very best, maybe a bit of a gamble on fuel for sure, but worked out perfectly in his favour. And then, to be honest, didn't even look that under pressure, it seemed, by the time we got to the end of the race.
Well, there's going to be a little bit of post-race having a look at a few different bits and pieces. But remember how there was a little bit of chatter about something going on and around Thomas Freeman, Brian Borg and Sean McNamara? Yeah, that's a little bit interesting. So gets to the back of Brian Borg and spins Borg around, and then McNamara gets into Freeman, and then that's broken the wheel off Scott Gamble, which gets into Michael Whiting, and then I think that's what kicks everything else off. So Scott Gamble's not going to finish this race.
Yeah, no, he didn't. He was stuck by the side of the road, and then Greg Galt's done it all by himself. He's actually clipped the inside wall going into the inner loop chicane, and then finds the outer barriers. Thankfully, that car well off in the runoff there, but nevertheless, that was the end of it all there. And as a result, these results towards the back half of the field might be a little provisional, and of course, there is that 5-second penalty for Madison down, which at this stage can confirm will slot him into 10th place. He just slips in ahead of Andrew Gilliam, but nevertheless, Scott, Phil Sell from Burton, from Stewart, your top three here tonight. I have to say also, Jared Philsell and Joe Stewart both up 8 spots to be where they are on the podium this evening. Is definitely a credit to them both. Jake Maloney, the first car just off the podium tonight in 4th. 11 spots gained for James Scott, making it 2 cars out of the Lobs team in the top 5, and also making some serious gains there tonight. Marcelo Rivera will have to settle for P6 and P7 for Madison down there in literally just said that. So yeah, move Griffin Gardner up to 7th, move Dylan O'Shea up to 8th, and just move Rick Kuznetsov up into 9th, and then we'll slot Madison down in at this stage into 10th place there to end our top quarter or so of the field here, Scott. And then over the page we'll go to the next drivers.
Andrew Gilliam will finish out of 11th, and confidence was there when I spoke to him midweek. Dylan Rudd, 12th spot will be enough, I think, to retain the championship lead, but that margin is starting to dwindle. Zach Rattray White home in 13th, another good result for him, continuing that progression for his driving this year. Adam Briggs from Kurt Stenberg got back to 15th. Decini, that's +6 on where he was prior to that pit stop. He'll say that's a win. Luke Rosella from 16th, Blake Warboys and Hayden Veld at home in 18th. Brady Myers in 19th, did respond late on. Bo Albert rounds out your top 20. We'll go over the leaf now to 21st for Ian Ford, Damian Johnson in 22nd. Luke Mitchinson will have a reasonable night at the office, not a great one. Sean McNamara, this is where all that hullabaloo was on the final laps of the race in 24th. Andre Youssef 25th. Thomas Freeman 26th, did slap on fresh tyres, didn't really work out for him. Brian Borg was the other driver that got involved in that one, and Josh Anderson after that late drive-through penalty didn't work out for him. From here, we get into a couple of drivers that didn't necessarily finish. Whiting did actually make it back to the pit lane and drove through and crossed the start-finish line. I believe he's going to be a classified finisher. Do not quote me on that one. Ethan Grieg-Galt did not cross the start finish line. In this series, to score points, you have to finish that last lap of the race. Ethan Greek-Gault will chalk up another big egg in his points column. That could be crucial in the back half of the season as he seeks to requalify in for the series in 2025. Teo Sorono had an incident. It was a big one and will not finish. Does manage to get back out there, I believe, and finish the race at 1 lap down. Scott Gambleholm will not finish the race off of the lead lap and 2 laps down for him. Jordan Ross did get back out there and did keep turning laps. We'll pick up a host of positions. And then we get into the retirements. Robbie Gibbs, Matthew Vola, Forza and El Nabi. That was a big, big accident for El Nabi. Jacob O'Reilly, Brady Baldwin, Tyson Broad, and Tom Freer very early on. Over the page, we'll get back to Michael Taliancic, whose night got underway in the worst possible margins. Will not finish the race. Didn't even complete. He did get back to the pit lane to finish lap number 1, and then from there on out, it's Brenton Hobson, who we mentioned had issues as well. Right, so there's going to be an adjustment to the championship standings. This is what it looks like when we leave the bull ring that was the Watkins Glen round here tonight. Dylan Rudd will still lead the championship. A margin of 20 points comes down to 12. Rick Kuznetsov took a little bit of margin back out of him. But now we get into the big guys. Andrew Gilliam drops out of 3rd place. He'll only drop to 4th, though. Jared Filsell, 28 points from the lead of the championship. Could the next round be his first time to sit atop of the totem pole in these standings? James Scott moves up into 5th. Madison down. Keep a little bit of a not finalised on his point standings. He'll drop a couple spots as well. Brady Myers loses a whole host of points. Was actually had a Madison down heading into tonight. Not so afterwards. Marcelo Rivera picks up another good night at the office. Blake Warboy shuffles a little bit down, and Jake Maloney jumps inside of that top 10 as well. Oh boy, there is so much to unravel in this one here tonight, Dan Yeaman. That was indeed a bull ring, and some drivers took the bull by the horns, and some drivers got led for a wild old ride.
Yeah, that they did. And just before we go to interviews, there's been some more race control messages coming through. Another 5-second post-race penalty has been issued, this time for Brady Myers for contact with Scott Gamble on lap 61 in the final turn, I think it is. So that is going to send the 22 machine back down from 19th to 26th in the provisional classification for tonight. So that's a big error for Brady in terms of points out of this one here tonight. Also, no further action between Scott Gamble and Brian Borg on lap 62. Has also been decided, which was apparently at turn 6. But with that said and done, it is definitely time to go and chat to the drivers who come home on the podium. And I think starting at the top, and to you, Scott, for a chat with our race winner from tonight, Jared Filsell.
Jared, that one was not easy. You had some fuel to save. You did underfill the car. We were sitting here going, did you overstep those fuel margins just a little bit? You're probably pinning the hopes on probably another safety car. Everything fell out. Just how you chalked it up here tonight.
Yeah, a little bit of a gamble, but that's what we're here for. My fuel situation probably wasn't as dire as you guys probably drummed it up to be. I think at the end there, I was only like 0.05 off my max burn that I had to save a lap. So it was getting easier and easier as the stint went along. So yeah, it was close to me being able to go flat out before that safety car. So yeah, it was cool.
Mate, in terms of things though right now, sitting on top of the world in terms of the championship form, the numbers are starting to come in and you're getting close to that championship lead. Is there something that's changed this year? Is there a little bit of extra motivation that's going on because you've just found, I don't know if it's tense, I don't know if it's an extra horsepower. Do we need to pull that car apart after the race each week?
Oh, you guys look at my data most weeks, so nah, it passes inspection, I'm pretty sure.
But what about the motivation that's going on behind the scenes this year? You know, we talked about it all the way back at Sebring. It was going to be a tough old championship hunt. You had to start clawing the margins back. You're just about there after tonight. Where did the motivation come from for you? Is it just, I wanted to win this championship this year. This is what I want to win. I'm going to put everything I know into this.
Well, yeah, kind of redeemed myself from last year, to be honest. That was a shocker. Started off really bad, and then it just snowballed and had a few ups and downs, and missed half the championship basically with race suspensions, so that's not ideal. So yeah, keep my nose clean. Obviously, yeah, round one wasn't great. I mean, the drive was good until it wasn't. So yeah, it's just a chipping away at the moment. So yeah, it's just not really thinking about the championship, to be honest. Just if you win races, it kind of sorts itself out.
Talk to us a little bit about Watkins Glen, because it's not an easy track to get around. A lot of changes that have just happened in the last couple of days as well. Was there a little bit of trepidation coming into tonight's race going, look, the car's probably a little bit more fragile than it would have been previously. The curbs are definitely a lot bigger. Was there a big change to the setups that you all of a sudden had to go through and start working on as well?
Curbs felt the same. Obviously, you got a little bit more feedback through the wheel because they're 3D. But James was picking up damage from the curbs, but he was the only one picking it up earlier in the week, so we didn't really understand that a lot. But yeah, we couldn't replicate it. He only got it once, so that's a bit of a outlier. But no, the car, yeah, I think it was okay. It felt quite nice. So but yeah, Watkins Glen, super difficult. I didn't make it easy for myself with qualifying. That I didn't intend on starting that far back, so yeah, just had to play it smart there. There's a bit of shenanigans going on at the start of the race, so it's quite difficult to try and predict what's going to happen when you're not in control, per se, so it's very difficult.
Righto, mate. For another phenomenal finish here. 2 wins on the trot. Who are the people that you'd like to say a big shout out and big thank you to?
Oh, obviously Speed Cafe, so hopefully they get some good TV time with the green-eyed monster out front, so that's great. As well as Ryko Performance. It's great to have them on board. If you guys want any setups for the V8, James, Luke, and Dylan will be building them this season, so you guys can go over and check those out. As well as HRS jumping on board, saving Luke's season, basically. He had a great race tonight, so it's nice to see him bounce back a little bit after being down in the dumps like I was last year, so hopefully he progresses forward for the rest of the year.
Mate, congratulations on another solid finish here tonight. It's been a pleasure watching once again, and we'll see you again next time out.
Thank you.
So from there, we'll take one step further down the podium and we'll have a chat to the driver who's managed to come home in second. Last time out, he was the hard charger. This time out, he started in second. He finishes second. He's having a chat to Dan Yeaman. It's Jake Burton.
Yeah, thank you there, Scott. Well, Jake, it's been certainly a good night for you there. Unfortunately, not quite the top step of the podium after Jared got out there first at that second safety car stop. I guess obviously with the safety car tonight really dictating the strategy, because you all came in with those first 2 ones. How much does that make, I think for me, how much does that really make the tyre management a big thing in the second half of the race? Because that was a long stint to finish on a single set of tyres.
Yeah, well, obviously, we knew Jared would, given how much time he sort of gained in that last stop, I think we knew he was a little down on fuel. It wasn't dire, I don't think, for him, but basically I was just trying to save tyre and not pass him, because I knew that if I passed him it would make his fuel saving situation a lot easier at this track. So yeah, for me it was just a matter of saving tyre, and then obviously we got that safety car, which probably wasn't great, but ultimately I don't think it really made a difference. I think Jared was just too quick tonight. I think you get a little bit of a gain in tow, and I just couldn't pass him. He was just too fast.
Interested to hear that, though. Yeah, we were wondering if you were closing up and just look a little bit too far from our perspective as well on that final lap, at least when you were coming down the back stretch, as we see you on the slow mo here, at least. So I guess sort of. We've also heard from Jared as well. He had one of his teammates reporting some issues with the new 3D curbs here, giving a bit of damage, and also I guess that maybe comes with the damage model changes. How has it been, sort of having to really at least big update to the car, little update to the track? Changing things around since we were here last time?
Well, I was getting a little bit of damage through the chicane. Like, if you look at the front of my car at the end of the race, it looks toasted on both sides, but I honestly think it's all aesthetic. I don't think it made any difference to the aero or the performance or anything like that. I think they're just little knocks, but yeah, probably the one corner I found it difficult was the penultimate corner. You're sort of right on the limit of the gear, right on the exit of the corner, and you kind of exit up over that curb, and it just, some laps wanted to free up. It was always pretty catchable, but it in terms of tyre life, it was something you really had to manage, because especially following a car up tight like Jared, you couldn't really be too accurate, so you had to just be careful with how you got on the power there. But yeah, I don't think it was drastically different. I think the racing was still mega here, always is, and I hope we keep coming back here.
It certainly does make for an exciting one, and the fact that, yeah, and just it's fast, it's furious. I mean, yeah, we got this race done in an hour and 25 minutes tonight. Well, not even, to be precise. So I get the feeling, yeah, you guys like it, and I don't see that coming off the calendar anytime soon. But as we approach the halfway mark of the season, going to Road America up next, what's it going to be like? Another track where I guess straight line speed will be pretty important. But how much difference will there be in preparing for a track like that compared to Watkins Glen here?
Well, it's a little more complicated. Obviously, just the track's quite long. I think it's probably one of the longest on the schedule, barring maybe Spa. So it's a little bit more technical, but we're quite quick there last year. I pretty much won the race there last year. I just gave it to Mads for the championship. So, yeah, I think we should roll out relatively quick. It's a track we know. We've been to a few times, unlike Jerez, which was totally new for us. So I think we should be pretty quick. Excited for that one. It's another track that always puts on banger racing. So, yeah, really, really excited to head there. I think the back half of the season, there's a few tracks which I'm not too excited by. So Road America will be a really good one for us, I think.
Well, sounds like it's a good phase of the season then, in terms of, yeah, as you said, fan favourites in that case. Well, floor's all yours, Jake, to give us the shout-outs and stuff to help. Who helped you get it done tonight in the number 8?
Yes, obviously a huge thanks to TTR. To be honest, this week I pretty much rolled out my set from last year and it felt quick straight away, but just having such elite teammates to be able to back-to-back to on a weekly basis is so incredibly helpful, especially when you have limited time. So huge shout out to the guys at TTR, and yeah, obviously to VRS. They've been a supporter of mine for a long time, and that support's extended to my real life racing this year. So huge thanks to VRS. I think they're the best in the game when it comes to data packs, analysis, and setups for the supercar and all the cars you can race here on iRacing. So huge shout out to them.
Well, there we are. Second place, yeah, from start. Well, almost to finish. There was a bit of P1 in the middle there for Jake Burton, but hopefully a good night for him there indeed, Scott. And it leaves us one final driver on the podium to chat to back in the series tonight, the number 35 of Job Stewart, who will now bring into the booth and hand back to you, Scott.
Mate, Joe, that did not look like an easy night at the office in terms of things. You had to manage fuel saving, you had to manage the draft games, but you had to also be a little bit of an opportunist with being in the right spot at the right time. That felt kind of nearly a Formula ES kind of race. How was it from your perspective?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, I was struggling a little bit towards the end there, but I was just lucky that I got into that position. Obviously, I took a fair bit less fuel than everyone in that last pit stop, so that put me in second behind Jared, and then was just able to keep with that top few guys, and then yeah, that sealed the podium.
Mate, racing around here tonight, all of those curbs, the bouncing over the curbs, we've just seen quite a few shots of the cars actually getting airborne that we necessarily weren't able to see at full speed. The driving around here, you always feel on the edge of your grip in this car, but more so I feel at Watkins Glen because you're also getting all those curb impacts, mate, as well. Talk us through the night and just driving through the track.
Yeah, for sure. Like the curbs up through the first bus stop's pretty crazy, and then the main bus stop through the middle there's even more hectic. Like even when you're fuel saving, it still is a little bit unpredictable because you hit the curbs differently every lap pretty much. So yeah, it adds a bit of uncertainty with that and makes the race a little bit crazy. But yeah, it was not too bad of a night from my side. Just qualifying in 11th, which struggled a little bit there, and then slowly moved forward in the race. But yeah, happy with the end.
Mate, in terms of things, it's been a little bit of a wild, tumultuous year just for you and the team and everything that's sort of going on in the background. Is this sort of a bit of redemption? You've been lacking a little bit of form, a little bit of comfort, shall we say, in everything that's sort of been going on tonight. You just go, man, it was just all about the racing. I got out there and that's what I had to give. And hey, man, third place. What a night.
Yeah, 100%. Like the Altus Australia thing that set sail last year was a great opportunity for myself and for a few others, but unfortunately that kind of fell apart with a few other guys leaving the team. But yeah, just me and Mike Telianich, I've got to thank him so much for sticking by me and helping me through this journey. And after missing the last couple rounds, yeah, it's great to come back and just show what we've got.
Mate, it's never an easy year when all of that goes on in the background. Third place here from Watkins Glen. Who have you got to thank for making it possible here for you tonight?
Yeah, again, just thanks to Mike T for all his hard work over the past few years, recruiting me back in the Pursuit Sim Racing days and helping me up until this point. And just thanks to the Synergy Sim Racing guys as well for lending a hand.
Mate, congratulations on a podium. You better go high five and shout out because I gave those guys a curse. So can you say apologies to them for me?
Yeah, they were talking about that before the race, so I'll go tell them.
We'll all catch up, I'm sure, in just a few moments. Thanks very much for your time, Joe. Pleasure seeing you. Final thoughts, actually, just before you jump out. Road America is actually where we're headed off in 3 weeks' time. How's the comfort levels heading into Road America? It's been a track that's been on the schedule for a fair while. You've got a lot of data to work with there. It's not one of those newer tracks.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a track that's been in iRacing for a while, and Logitech Series has been there the past few years. So, yeah, I think in that aspect, it'll be good to just go back there and start cutting laps, having done the track before. But also, it's like a completely different track to Watkins. Like the characteristics of the track, it's they got that long straight where you can draft up behind people, but then it's also a lot more technical than Watkins is. So, yeah, it'll be a completely different beast.
Mate, like I said, pleasure chatting to you as always, Joe. Have a lovely night.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, 3 weeks' time, bookmark the calendar. If you didn't get through the entire cupboard supply of popcorn tonight, you got 3 weeks to restock. We're going to go racing once again for another action-packed night from Road America. And like he said, Dan, from Job Stewart's mouth, it's a little bit like Phillip Island. There's long straights, there's technical sections, there's uphill, there's downhill, there's the carousel. It's got it all when we go to Road America.
I mean, yeah, you heard it from Jake as well. It's a track that at least he likes, and generally speaking, it's a track that has been around a long time, and as a result, and does work with these cars quite well. In addition, so yeah, as you said, plenty as the two straights back to back there in the opening sector. The elevation change through the middle part of the circuit, as well as an even more straights, and they all go into solid overtaking opportunities with decent heavy braking zones, 90-degree corners. To really work with them as well, and of course that famous carousel section around the back of the lap to boot as well will test your patience on the throttle pedal and managing that left front there once again as well.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, 3 weeks' time, Wednesday the 3rd of July at 7:45 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. If you enjoyed everything you've seen here tonight, you're going to enjoy that. Jared Philsell said he wanted to feel redemption. He wanted to redeem himself for everything that went on last year. And at one of the tracks, one of the circuits where things maybe come unstuck a little bit, could it be the redemption that he's been searching for? You'll find out 3 weeks' time when we go racing for the Logitech Pro Invitational.
It's motorsport, but not as you know it. Test yourself and your everyday road car. Safe, affordable, but most of all, fun. And all you need is your daily driver. Experience the thrill of a sprint day. Race against the clock at a hill climb. Or test your reflexes with an auto test. It takes just 3 simple steps to get started. Get on the start line. Search Motorsport Australia Daily Driver today.